of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have got, I know there's only one item on the agenda, but it's a lot. It's a heavy lift. And so I'm gonna kind of run through what we're gonna do this evening. So Noah is going to start.
Are we amending the agenda?
Oh, I'm terribly sorry, there is an item on the agenda. I forgot about Charlie.
Yeah, I'm trying to, got it up in front of me. I think
I'm
there's
just
more.
jumping right into the budget. I'm sorry. Charlie's on the screen.
I got your back, girl.
All right, we do have a business item, potentially adopting a resolution pertaining to the Kroger merger. And I talked to a few of you and we're all over the place on this one. So I just put it on the agenda and I'm gonna let you guys talk about it, decide whether or not we want to take a position on this or we don't. And so with that, Charlie, you wanna start with maybe a little staff report and some background on this?
Sure, yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity to present this to you tonight. This is something that a number of cities are working on, and I know your staff, Nick Bond in particular, has been tracking this matter. So I wanted to bring this to your attention in the event you wanted to do anything about it. So as you may or may not know, Kroger is purchasing Albertsons, and they are combining forces. Albertsons owns the majority of grocery stores in the state of Washington, and Kroger is a relatively close second. And so that merger is going to result in all of the stores coming under the Kroger name. In order to appease federal regulators, part of the deal requires that Kroger sell off and Albertsons sell off a number of stores. And the purpose for that is to sort of defeat or mitigate the loss of competition that will arise due to the merger. And so these stores are currently proposed for sale to an entity known as CS Wholesale Grocers. That's an entity out of New Hampshire. They operate very few grocery stores, and the ones that they do operate are known as Piggly Wiggly's and Grand Union. They are primarily in the Northeast and South. And they're not known for their grocery stores. They're primarily known as a grocery distributor, meaning they distribute goods to other stores. So this would be the first time that they would have a presence in Washington, and in fact, the first time they'd have a presence in the Northwest. This merger has triggered a few key litigation moments. So in the state of Oregon, there is an action pending, and our Attorney General has filed a separate action pending in King County Superior Court, arguing that the merger, among other arguments, violates our Consumer Protection Act. And the reason the Attorney General, one of the reasons the Attorney General has brought this lawsuit is a very similar merger essentially failed, for lack of a better word, in 2015, when Albertsons merged with Safeway. They had a similar, what's known as divestiture program, where they were going to sell off a number of stores to a buyer, again, in order to preserve competition. But they did so in a way that led to litigation, but also the failure of those competitive stores. So in particular, Albertsons sold quite a few stores to Hagen grocery store, and within months, Hagen went bankrupt. And so Albertsons was then able to buy all those stores back, or a majority of those stores back, for about $1. And then they further consolidated their market presence. They did close some of those stores as well. So this lawsuit and the impacts of the merger itself are obviously going to impact job opportunities in a number of cities. It potentially has the impact on your customer base of losing this particular type of grocery store in this particular market. And so a number of cities have authorized an amicus brief in support of the Attorney General, or they've just adopted resolutions against the merger, sort of as a statement of policy. So we're bringing this to you as a discussion option for you this evening. And then the potential action, if you so choose to take it, would be to either adopt a resolution I've given you an example one that comes from the cities of Kirkland and Covington, or take no action. But that resolution would authorize you to participate in that amicus brief, which is simply in support of the Attorney General's lawsuit. And I'm writing that brief. So that's why this is near and dear to my heart. I'm writing this for another entity.
Okay,
I have some questions.
go ahead.
Okay. First and foremost, it's gonna be a done deal that the federal court is already gonna do this. So whether we say yay or nay and hop on, I'm not gonna say the bandwagon, but let's just say that, it's not gonna make a difference. What's gonna make a difference is the union for the people. And it's the union that is UFCW 3000 that is going to represent the people in this, if they're losing hours or if they're losing anything. So I'm I feel like we are coming across this a little bit late. And I remember 2 months ago, maybe more than that, I literally talked to a person. We can go back in the records, and I called him, and I think I was the only one that called him. And I asked, and it was about this whole thing. And I said, well, and I talked to him personally, and I said, let me get back to you. And because I know someone who's been working for Safeway for like 16 years. And that's when, you know, Safeway was Hagar, or I mean, you know, all this other stuff. And so I got back to him and I go, I don't know if it's really the city council's position to step up and do this. However, since you had your email that was, you know, a month ago, could you bring it back up again and talk to the mayor, talk to us again? So I don't know why we're doing this, and is it really our role right now? This is like at the very end of all this, and it's not our role for employees. I mean, do we care about the people that are working for Albertsons and Safeway? And well, we got Kroger. Isn't Fred Meyers part of Kroger?
Yeah.
Fred Meyers
Yes.
is still gonna be there, but I just wanna know more. Are we really a part of this? Is it really our role to take the responsibility in this? And like I said, we could have took part in this like 2 months or something ago. And I'm sure we can look back when this man reached out to us, but nobody hopped on the bandwagon on that. And that's why I said, I don't know if it's really our role. Reach back out, put your email back out again. And then all of a sudden, here we are. So I think if we're supporting anybody, we should support the union, because we get business coming and going. The business that come in, we make sure our, you know, is the code right, is, you know, all this other stuff right.
So I think we understand where you're at on this. So let's hear for some other
Okay.
points.
Well, there was one question in what she said that I think I can't answer. The rest was all policy discussion, but Kroger has gone on the record in the Attorney General's lawsuit as saying, if the Attorney General is successful, the deal will be dead. So that lawsuit does still have some weight. I can't tell you legally if that will actually occur and whether that's an empty threat, but from their perspective, success in this litigation would kill the deal. But the rest of what you said was policy discussion, so I'll stand down for those.
And Scott, you raised your hand. right?
Yeah, so first of all, I just wanted to ask if you could also respond to Heidi's assertion that it's too late. What does it mean for us if we file this now? Is it really too late?
It's not too late, no. So there's not a hard and fast deadline because amicus is not something that is routinely filed at the trial court level. So they've never adopted a court rule that allows for it. We're operating under the assumption that it would be entertained prior to closure of briefing on the trial briefing schedule, which is this Friday. So it is late in the sense that we were not brought into this until, I wasn't brought into this until last week, that this was an option that some cities were pursuing. But we still have to file what's referred to as a motion to seek leave to file an amicus brief. There's still a chance the court says no to that. But it's not too late in the sense that we are still able to file that, and the Attorney General is supporting the effort of these other cities.
Okay, and I got two more questions. What does an amicus brief get us? What's the advantage of the city being a part of this?
An amicus brief, you'll recall, I'm the chair of the amicus committee of the Washington State Association of Municipal Attorneys. So we, on behalf of cities that ask us to file briefs, we file briefs in key legal cases that have import for Washington's cities. So for example, in the Grants Pass case, we filed an amicus brief with the US Supreme Court on behalf of the association, and then Seattle, Spokane, a number of big cities all participated in that. An amicus brief tells the court that there are significant legal concerns for Washington's cities embedded in the legal issues in the action. Here, as Councilmember Fenton notes, there's a potential to lose union jobs. That's one of the legal issues associated with this. That occurred in the Hagen Albertsons matter, where when Hagen went bankrupt, there were 2 stores that closed that had union positions, and those jobs were lost. There's other legal issues with serving the marketplace and ensuring that your residents have adequate food. There are arguments being made in this lawsuit that this merger, because it will likely lead to the closure of the stores, and there's 3 in Port Orchard, which are listed in the resolution, that will likely close, that can lead to what's referred to as food islands, or food, areas where food insecurity. Because when you lose grocery stores and they're consolidated, then your consumers have less options. And when, in particular, they're all under the same umbrella, they all come through the same distribution center. So it can lead to actual consequences for your citizens. So the cities are believing that submitting amicus briefing on these topics would assist the court in evaluating the legal issues in this action. That's what we use amicus for, and that's what we would propose to do it in this situation.
Okay, and then my last question is, what are the costs that you would anticipate for the city to participate in the filing?
I don't believe there's any costs associated with it. My time's being paid by another city, other than my time right now when I'm at your meetings.
Or time right now, and the resolution.
All right, thank you very much.
Did you have your hand raised?
I did, so I have several points to make, but do we have to make a motion to, since this is an action item?
We could.
Okay, so the motion would be to move forward with an amicus brief from the city of Port Orchard. That's what I was trying to find on this.
Or to adopt the resolution if you'd like.
So, thank you. So, Mayor, I move to adopt a resolution opposing the Kroger-Albertsons merger. Thank you, Fred.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Okay.
Motion maker, go ahead, Jim.
A couple items. One, having lived in the Northeast and the South where Piggly Wiggly operates, I can honestly say I was not, even though this was years ago, I was not impressed with their grocery services. I was further shocked when we found out that it's Piggly Wiggly and they have no distribution out here. That's going to be a very big hurdle to overcome. I'm very concerned about any consolidation or closure of stores for the items that we just talked about regarding a desert, because of the neighborhoods where the 3 stores are. Any one of them that are going to close is going to cause a significant hardship to any of those communities. 2 of those communities serve low income areas, and if any of those close, that's going to be a problem. Lastly, and this is not saying this could happen, but there was a significant increases in prices when Hagen's took over the stores before they went bankrupt in those stores, so that people that could only go to those stores paid an increased price for that merger. So I'm fully in support of this. And I'll be glad to hear other comments.
Call on others first. Councilor Morgan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, I am going to be opposed to this one. There's no upside for the city of Bremerton, or city of Port Orchard. Sorry, we're talking about Bremerton area, for the city of Port Orchard. Number one, we went through this before, none of those stores closed. Period, and I'll be on. Number two, unlike Jay's experience with Piggly Wiggly, my former employer, US Bank, where I was a VP, had banks inside of those stores. I helped open some of those in some of those markets. I thought they were a great retailer. It's also where I learned in different places of the country, they call a cart a buggy. I happened to learn that in their store, just as a side note. Additionally, I just don't see where taking a stand helps us. If anything, we're worried about them closing if this doesn't go through, additional stores and or potentially our Fred Meyer as well. So I just don't see an upside for taking this motion. I understand some of the worries. I share some of that, but I don't see where that benefits us adding to it.
Councilor Ward.
Yeah, definitely. I think I talked to Mayor Rob for like 15 minutes on this, one of our longest phone calls, because I don't know enough about it. When Miss Archer, when you read off, you said Albertson, you didn't say Safeway. I don't know the grocery market well enough. Is Safeway and Albertson the same?
Yes.
Yeah, Albertson owns Safeway.
They are the same.
Yeah.
Okay. Kroger is the cheapest grocery store in the area. Fred Meyer is. So that might not be a bad thing, but definitely a store did close during that whole merger a few years ago. The Silverdale store.
In our city is what I'm.
Oh, in our city,
Sorry.
for sure. Oh,
Yeah.
for sure.
No,
Yeah,
no,
true.
no. Poco had one closed as well. I'm not trying to say.
Yeah, I'm afraid that the way things are going, we're gonna lose a store anyhow.
Regardless.
We're losing a store in this city regardless. Like, hopefully not two, but we're gonna lose one. I don't know, I told Mayor Rob, I don't know this much about this thing, so I had a lot of questions, and he said he has a lot of questions too, you know, and when you said filing, we're not filing anything, right? We're just putting our name down as support if we voted to do this. Miss Archer, is that accurate? We're not
Correct,
filing
yeah.
anything. Yeah.
Well, you would be filing it with the court with your signature on it. So your name, the city of Port Orchard would be listed as one of the amicus cities. Right now it's Kirkland, Covington, and Kenmore.
What about Seattle, Pierce County, Everett,
Big Harbor.
Not on them.
stores up north? Anybody else involved?
I'm not
in-
sure. Yeah, I'm not sure who else. I know the state of Oregon filed one. I honestly don't know at this moment all of the amicus. I could get that information for you, but the Attorney General has filed the action, and then
Okay.
they're looking for support essentially from other agencies. So
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely.
Who's that haven't spoken yet? In fact, Councilor Jay.
Yeah, I was also curious about this because we haven't filed amicus very often. But I was telling Heidi that I actually had a conversation with a worker at Fred Meyer, which is one of my favorite stores, and
Yeah.
she was telling me at one time, would the council consider asking Kroger to give them a living wage? And I remember taking it to the council back then, the council thought, well, this would be telling, you know, a company how to do their job. And the council at that point declined. This to me is very different from that though, because I am concerned about a merger where we have 4 stores that would potentially be under the same owner. And I think we would lose 2, if not 3 of them. And a couple of them are in, you know, they're like Lund, Sedgwick and, oh yeah.
Mile Hill,
the Safeway,
Bethel, Mile Hill.
Yeah. So even though I like to shop at Fred Meyer, I like to know there are other choices. And there is some competition there, so I have no problem supporting this.
Mark, you have three.
Well, I'm afraid I'm gonna be rowing both sides of the boat on this. I really don't see a pro or a con one way or the other. We don't, whether we file on this or not, we don't control what these stores and what the ownerships of these stores are gonna do. We may lose these stores without this. We may lose it with this. So it's really a difficult decision to make. But if we have no real skin in the game as far as costs associated with it, and there's no cons to us signing up and saying, yes, we're
Did we ask her to come?
in favor? Which, can you give me that, Charlotte? Can you let us know, are there any blowbacks or pushbacks for us as a city if we were to support this that you can see?
I can't guarantee that there wouldn't be some, I don't know. I highly doubt that, that you are going to factor in the way that if this merger does move forward, if the Attorney General loses, I think essentially your question is, if the Attorney General loses, the merger goes forward, would your stores be closed as punishment for having participated? Is that essentially it? Kind of?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do not have a crystal ball. I think it's relatively guaranteed that if the merger goes forward, your stores will close, because CNS is undercapitalized in the exact same way Hagen was. And so it is also indicated that CNS may be buying these, and it will look better for them on their books if they buy them and immediately are done with them, essentially. So, but that's me speculating based on the record that the Attorney General has created. So short answer, no, I don't have an answer for you on that question. And I can't guarantee that your stores wouldn't be closed either way.
Sure, and I wouldn't expect you to want to guarantee, put your name on that anyways, but thank you for the input. That being said, there are no guarantees on either side of this. There's no guarantees in life. We all know that as well. With this one, I'd have to vote no on this at this point.
So we're gonna go around one last time. We got a lot to do tonight, so let's be concise with our remarks and get to the vote on this, because we've got a lot of work to do here on the budget steps. Councilmember.
Okay, like I said, it's already a done deal in the courts. With us putting this on or not, it's not gonna make a difference. If we want to empower, we support the unions. The union is the only people that can support the people in these mergers. And I feel like this is, like you are putting this on us, for us to vote on this, Charlie. We already put this out there like 2 or 3 months ago about this, and nobody talked about it. And now she's bringing it on that we have to vote yes or no on this.
Charlie's not doing anything.
Well,
Charlie is not doing anything. She has brought an action item for you guys to consider. That's all that's been done
But
here.
she
There's a motion and a
is
second.
helping other cities, and so she brought this to our city. Is that
No,
correct?
I brought it to your city because Nick had reached out about this topic. And so I knew your city was interested and Nick's raising his hand. I think he's got useful information too. I mean, he's concerned from a community development perspective for your city. So I don't have a policy vote. I never do. And I literally just do what I'm told.
Here to hear from Nick. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to share, I did reach out to Charlie when the list of stores that were going to be spun off were announced. So 3 stores in Port Orchard were announced. They are our only 3 standalone full-service grocery stores that aren't also part of the larger enterprise. I did study regulating monopolies and antitrust issues in graduate school. It's something that I'm familiar with, that I'm passionate about, and I've written letters about a variety of mergers in my personal capacity over the years. What I saw with this potential merger was likely more harm than good to the city of Port Orchard. I think at best, you're gonna end up with 3 lower quality stores that stay open in Port Orchard, and the higher quality store is gonna be Fred Meyer, and I think that you're going to end up with more traffic congestion with people foregoing the smaller, lower quality stores going to Fred Meyer. I think there's traffic impacts. I think there are pricing impacts, as we saw with the Hagen merger, which could be harmful to our residents. So I reached out to Charlie and said, hey, is there any way for Port Orchard to have a voice in this? And I just, got hired on to do this thing. If Port Orchard wants to participate, there's an opportunity. And I said, I think that we should reach out to the council members individually. This was just last week, and that's where we're at right now. But, in my professional opinion, I think Port Orchard is getting a bad deal compared to the affluent communities elsewhere where their Safeway and Albertson stores are not being spun off to this, lower tier, likely lower tier, and so I thought it was harmful to the city, and that's why I suggested that Charlie bring it forward.
And point of order, Mr. Mayor, I just want to correct him a little bit. There is an extra freestanding in a grocery outlet. We don't want to discount them. They're a great community member.
And they're gonna be a Grand Union, and we've already had mergers, and I talked to someone who's been working for Safeway for 16 years. This is still gonna happen, and where the power lies is in the union. It's
Okay,
not
I
us.
just stated that numerous times.
Well, I
So
just
if you
wanna
have
make
something-
sure.
You have something new to interject, because we're gonna move the conversation
I just-
on. Councilmember,
Just a follow-up point is that, while the store did not close permanently, Safeway, in between Safeway and Hagen's, and then Hagen's turning back to Safeway, it was closed down for a period of time, which impacted the residents of that area. So it just.
So I believe there's very,
Mhm.
polar, I
No,
don't think
I
we're
just-
gonna change anybody's mind.
I'm just
So-
gonna make one-
Your count-
Two last points. We have a grocery outlet near the one on Mile Hill.
Mhm.
We have a Walmart next to the one on Bethel. If we have one area of concern, it is of the highest, income level in our city area, over off Sedgwick. So I would say that. I would also say that in the event that something did happen, it allows to bring in more diversification. I think part of my conversation with the mayor was, hopefully we can get a Trader Joe's. Hopefully we can bring in somebody else altogether. And lastly, I think I'll point out, that, Ms. Archer said herself, Piggly Wiggly is first and foremost a distributor. And it was brought up that we have worried that they don't have distribution set up here. If that's what they do best, I would hope that they bring that to our community. Thank you.
And this is why I brought it here, because when I talked to you guys individually, I very sensed that there was passion on both sides of this issue. So we have a motion and a second on the table. I'd really like to get to a vote unless there's something new you're gonna bring.
I would just like to say that I share Heidi's concern for the union, and ironically, I believe the union would oppose the merger. Because of the potential loss of jobs. So that's just my opinion.
I
I'm
talked
putting
to
it out
someone.
there and I'm done.
Okay, so,
Talk to someone.
I'm just gonna share my opinion because I haven't yet, but for me, I think our public expects us to look out for the best interests. I think this is something that has the potential for creating food deserts or price inequality, and quite often the people that can least afford groceries can also least afford to travel for their groceries. And finally, there's no cost to the city to do this, so why wouldn't we? It signals something good for our community.
all right, with that, I'd like,
Point of order, Mayor. I'd like to ask for, individual voice. vote.
I'm gonna ask, I'm already one step ahead of you. I'm gonna ask you, while you vote, voice vote, to also raise your hand, because I know I'm on a split vote here. So we have a motion and a second on the table.
So it's, apologize, but, and I'm out of order, but it's yes to
The
put our
motion
name on it
is-
or no?
The motion before you made by Councilmember Roosevelt,
Yeah,
seconded by
correct.
Councilmember Diener, is to
Support.
the
Thank you.
amicus brief. That is the motion
Following
before
you.
you. So all in favor of filing the amicus brief, in support of filing the amicus brief, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay, opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, so it fails 4-3. All right,
Thanks, everybody.
They're gonna do
Okay.
it. They're gonna.
Thank you, Charlie.
Ms. Archer.
Thank you.
all right.
They're gonna close it.
We got 2 hours of material here to get through an hour and a half now. So, but that's okay. That was
We can
important.
go till 9:30, Mayor, by our charter.
Okay, so Noah is going, first, so I'm gonna kind of give you an overview of what we're gonna try to accomplish tonight. Noah's gonna start with giving you discussing the timeline of where we're at. Tonight is the first touch on the budget. There's gonna be multiple touches on the budget. Our goal is to adopt the budget at the last meeting in November, on November 26th. But there's about at least four opportunities for us to touch the budget that you're being proposed, being seen for the first time. Noah is going, after he does that, he's gonna give a presentation on our revenue sources. And then I'm going to walk through the highlights of the mayor's budget. Noah is going to walk through a slide deck with the directors on the operating budget. He's gonna talk about our income statement, and then we're gonna discuss the budget. We have a capital budget presentation that I don't think we're gonna get to tonight, but we'll try. And if we don't, it'll resurface at next week's, in 2 weeks, at the council meeting. So with that, that's the agenda for tonight. Yes,
Next week. Would be 2 weeks.
is it next week? It is next week. Yeah, it is next week. Why not? Why shouldn't we do it? So with Noah,
Thank you.
Noah passed binders out to all of you guys, and so you'll be able to follow along there, probably easier than some of the other students behind you. So Noah, take it away.
Okay, so everybody does have a binder. Gonna try to rush but thoughtfully to get us back on track. Within your binder, you should have a presentation on the revenue sources, and I can email that prior in the week. So we're gonna start the conversation there. I do have the calendar up. Just want to touch on a couple of key points. Again, we're going to talk the revenue sources and property tax presentation tonight. In anticipation of next week's property tax levy for adoption. We are required to hold a public hearing, so we'll hold that public hearing next week prior to the adoption. So tonight, we'll start with the revenue sources presentation. So hopefully everybody has this one and you have it in your binder.
No. You were gonna talk about the schedule before you went to revenue sources, the budget schedule.
So I
He just,
You did. Okay.
just,
Okay.
he's making it shorter as he
All
can.
right.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions about the schedule? It's in
Section
your
one.
packet,
Section.
bottom of the page.
I guess the only other pieces I would add is, so that's next week's, we'll adopt the property tax. There will be some additional budget conversations next week, as we're anticipating. Then the second public hearing will be on November 12th. After tonight, we expect this week that we have 40 time to discuss the budget. So we'll have a second public hearing on the 12th with anticipated adoption date on the 26th.
Is that out there already publicly where people can see the public notice?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm. Okay.
Your packet had all of these documents in.
Yeah, well, I looked on our, the city page and I didn't see a public notice, so I just want to make sure it's going out there for the public notice to have.
It'll be part of your
On the
packet.
website you saw?
Yeah, on the website, I just want to make sure it's already out there.
And
So as it gets closer to the meeting, we'll put it on the city's website as well as Facebook, as well as our email distribution list. Right now, what we've done is, by state law, is we published it with our official newspaper, which is Kitsap Sun.
Mhm.
So I believe it's, getting to be published within the next day or two, as well as someday next week.
I did not, yeah, okay, thank you.
And the only thing we're taking action on next week is the revenue sources. So we read this into the record twice, his presentation, Noah's presentation that he's about to give. And then next week, we need to take action to pass a resolution identifying our revenue sources for the. Take it away, Noah.
Okay, jumping right back in, again, as a requirement of RCW 84, 55, 120, we're required to hold a public hearing again, which we'll hold next week. So tonight, we're gonna look at current expense budget, and this does not mean our capital, enterprise, or assessment budgets. Is everybody find the presentation?
In the front of your binder.
Yep. Yeah, I'm sorry, I slid it in the front here. There you go.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You good?
I know, I thought.
You may have moved yours from earlier today.
Oh. Yeah, try to follow along up here.
Okay. So before you on this slide, we're looking at the 25-26 biennial budget, tax revenue only. On the slide, we're identifying the sales tax at $14.9 million. Property taxes at $8.2 million, representing the second largest taxing source. And then finally, other taxes. Again, this is a biennial budget, so this is the 2 years combined. The next slide, we identify each fiscal year, and how we've allocated, and the percentage of the overall tax. Sales tax, again, is representing the largest source, nearly 49%, followed by property taxes, 26%, and other taxes rounded out to 24%. I highlighted on the box, the top 3 taxing sources, and then we break down a little bit further, identifying all the other taxing sources below. Electric, utility taxes, and public transportation tax are the 3 largest of other taxing sources. Now I'll move to this next slide, because this question came up during our finance committee. The utility taxes, as represented in this slide, represent water, sewer, and storm taxes. So those are taxes that are levied on our enterprise funds and paid into the general fund. On the smaller chart, we identify total revenue anticipated of $4.37 million. Of these other revenue sources, the top 3 categories are intergovernmental, which are primarily federal and state grants, motor vehicle fuel taxes. We have charges for goods and services at nearly $936,000, and rounded off by license and permits at $1.7 million. Again, that's primarily business licenses and building permits. So I'm gonna move to the next page because my slides are freezing like it has in prior presentations. I don't know why, but it's this time of time. On this slide, we'll look at the 23-24 budget compared with the 25-26. Here you'll notice that tax revenue is budgeted to increase in total by 5.46%. Sales tax is increasing about 4.6%. Property tax is slightly higher at 15%. Other taxes we increase mostly attributable to our public transportation taxes and other tax category. Again, another comment that came up is why is intergovernmental revenue declining so much? Again, that's grant revenue, state and federal. And what I did identify those, so we had some commerce grants for middle housing, we had a comp plan grant, we had a GMA grant in our 23-24 budget. We also had a transportation TIB, Transportation Improvement Board, Transportation Improvement Board grant, nearly $330,000 in 23-24. We also had some highway street lights of $200,000 in 2024. So again, the intergovernmental revenue are declining because we've already received those grants, awards, and projects, and we're currently programmed in for 25-26.
Is it okay to ask questions as we go? Okay. On property taxes, the increase of almost 15%, I assume is both due to the increases in the number of units being built along with the projected increase in assessment of current houses.
Yeah, and if you hold that, we'll break it down, because I want to be clear that it's not a 15% increase that we're imposing.
No, I know we're not opposing it.
Okay.
I was wondering what the combination was between the.
Yeah, you can only go by 1%.
Right. That's what, yeah, that's why I was wondering.
Quick question, I see that the transportation tax goes into the general fund. Does it go into our general fund, or do we have to give it to transit?
It is not a transit tax.
Okay.
It's a transportation benefit district tax.
Okay.
It does go into our fund 002, and we have committed that funding source for our TIP 1.8, 1.9 Bethel 1
It's the
phase
Bethel.
project.
So it's not the general fund?
No, it's our
not
TE.
001.
Well, when we talk general fund, there's 2 funds we really talk about. We talk about 001, which we call
Okay.
current expense, and we call 002 the street fund. Combined, they make the general fund of the city. A lot of 001 funds 002 through transfers. So we do look at them holistically together. And so that's how we kind of talk about them when we talk general fund.
So the tax that Fred is referring to is the 1/10 councilmatic tax that was passed to fund the Bethel corridor improvements.
So moving on to the property tax. On this table, we kind of look at the history of the property tax. Again, as a reminder, property tax represents 27% of our budget, of our tax revenue for 001 and 002. For 2025, we are proposing a property tax levy of $4,080,000 roughly. Again, it's important to remember that Washington State has one of the most complex property tax methodologies nationwide. So in Washington, we have a budget-based property taxation system. which means as part of the budget process, we have to establish the amount of property tax revenue we need to fund the budget. And from there, the county treasurer will establish the levy and the rate. So we're really looking at the amount of money we need to fund our operations on an annual basis and establishing the levy. I'm on the right slide, and again, we just are demonstrating the property tax levy increasing through progress. So again, 4,080,000. This next slide gets to your question, Jay. Property tax comparison, oh, sorry. Yes, that's.
Yeah, it's on.
Yes, okay,
Yeah.
that is the one I'm on. So in this slide, we're comparing and breaking down the levy amounts. So what we see here is the 3,695,000 was the amount levied in 2024, and that carries at the top of 2025 as our previous years. 2025, we can collect an additional $32,000. At that point, we hit our lid. Again, thinking about that 1% lid. And at that increase, it is not even a full percent, it's a 0.869% increase. So that's the most we can increase it. And this is where the additional revenue comes in from new construction of $272,000 coming on the tax rolls. We always put in an estimate for utilities in case there are some additional state utilities that come into their tax rolls, 10,000. And then refunds, we re-levy those every year. So that would bring us to the total of roughly $90,000 for fiscal year 2025. Don't pause there and expect that answer.
No, yeah, it was fine. I was assuming that, the assessments are slowing down also, it looks like.
In the perfect world, we would get 1%, but we never get 1% because I believe it's $1.60 that the city, the fire district and the library district all operate within that $1.60. And depending on how much they take, it impacts the amount that we get. It's very complicated. And that's about as well as I can explain it or understand it. But we all operate in the local portion, which I believe is $1.60 per thousand. And they impact our levy rate and how much do we get to collect.
So question, we don't say, yes, we want to increase property tax. It is already in the levy with the library and the fire department? Is that what I'm hearing?
Statutorily, we can only increase our collection by up to 1%. And you can see in this, we're getting 0.2 less than that. One less than that. There is legislation potentially that would come that AWC is pursuing to allow something based on inflation up to 3%. But as it stands right now, we are allowed to take up to 1%, which in what we're seeing here, we're going to get 0.8, which equates to $32,000 across the entire city.
Correct.
Every time there's an assessment, like example, I use my home, has gone up substantially. The city receives more. No, the state receives more dollars. Who receives the more dollars?
No, nobody.
The schools and the fires?
No. Your value went up. Your taxes didn't go up.
Yeah.
Now, so the fire dollars that they get is the operational dollars.
Correct.
Then there are bonds and levies that the school district, the fire district runs, the port maybe. So folks, there's entities and they say, we need $100 million and it breaks out to so much per thousand in that benefit area, okay? In that scenario, those scenarios though, when those values go up and there's more houses added, everybody's how much because it's a fixed amount that they're collecting. So then it dilutes it, how much we all pay. But the $1.60 is $1.60. that each of us pay per thousand. And our tax that we can oppose can go up by, that's the Iman initiative that passed, by only 1%. And in most cases, we don't usually get, when previously, to probably 10 years ago, we annexed into the library district. We used to collect the library's tax, but then we turned around and wrote them a check.
Sure.
Because they operate the library for us. So we annexed into the library district and now they take that tax directly, but it comes out of the same bucket. There's mud.
No,
It's complicated.
I literally just learned something because I was not fully aware of that. So.
Yeah, and some common misconception that my assessed value went up $50,000 and
Sure.
and my taxes went up because of that. That's why the assessor did it.
Yeah.
And that's,
Mhm.
it does, if, let's say, Scott's home went up by 15% and mine only went up by 5%, it can cause a tax shift because it's based on the value and the amount of tax being levied. So it can't, your value going up can affect your taxes, but through a tax shift.
Got it.
It's complicated, it's really complicated.
We'll have some counseling. one day.
Well, when your assessment comes out in February,
Yes,
good time to sit down and talk.
yeah,
We can do that.
let's do that. Yeah, sorry.
No, that's good. Good overview. Glad I got to sit back and ask some message stand once. That's great. So moving on, next slide. My presentation is frozen, so I'm gonna go to paper. Retail sales and use tax. So the city of Port Orchard receives, and actually is 0.94%. Slide has 0.84%, but 0.84% is what we actually receive. General fund, the other 1/10 is that TBD, tax that goes into 002.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And then lastly, we have another a sales tax slide here, where we show that through this September, we've collected $6,044,000, which is nearly 83% of our overall budget. So we have experienced real growth in sales tax. We met today in the finance committee and it's about 5% year-over-year growth.
That's a steady growth.
For this, from September 2023 through September 2024.
In the previous finance, when we did the biannual budget, we had projected it out years at 5%.
I would think November, December would be higher.
It's 3 months in arrears. That we're
Well,
The recording.
The recording is 3 months.
The retailer collects it, it goes to the state.
Got
and
it.
then we get it.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Back one, Brandy, back one.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you for.
Makes
putting that
sense.
together.
That's,
Still gonna
makes
be
sense
a
why
lot. We're gonna
February
make
is
that
so
work.
high.
Yeah, we had 83 with a quarter left.
Yeah.
So your next packet, on slide 13, again, we show the sales tax revenue received by month, going back to 2019 through 2024. Again, see positive growth. Overall, year to date, we're up 5%, which is, good positive growth. I did want to mention that, the finance committee met, I think it was last month, maybe 2 months ago, when we were developing the budget. And for the sales tax, growth for 2025, we discussed what we would normally use, which would be a 5-year historical average. The last biennial budget cycle, we used a 3-year. So this time we kind of went in the middle of the 4-year for establishing our 25, sales tax level. And then we grew 2026 by another 5%. So again, last slide just kind of demonstrates another different way of looking at sales tax by bar chart. Everyone learns a little differently. And with that, I can take additional questions, or were they answered throughout the presentation?
Thank you.
Questions on the revenue piece. We're always gonna give the same presentation, probably even faster next week. And we'll open a public hearing, and then the first business item will be the resolution related to this, so.
To make that clear for next week, we're not changing anything, we're just approving what
Yeah,
we're setting out as our plan.
yeah.
Yeah.
Our sources of revenue.
Yeah, so next week I'll bring forward an ordinance establishing the property tax levy. after we held public hearing.
So did you have a finance committee meeting today?
We did.
Okay, so from the chair, was there anything that you discussed in here,
We're increasing.
anything you want to say about it?
Not in this part, yeah.
Some of this other stuff.
Okay, yeah. I just
Not
want
here
that.
at all.
Councilor Kendall.
Question to Noah, with all this, are we raising the sales tax? Or the property tax? We're not raising
We aren't
anything, right?
raising,
No,
we are increasing the property tax by 0.86%, less than 1%. Okay, our statutory limit, we're moving that up, and that was a total of additional $32,000 spread amongst the entire city of property owners.
So if I say yes, then that means we're raising the property tax, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I wanna know.
Yes. The sales tax, no, that's just a forecast of what we anticipate receiving in sales tax revenue.
Mhm.
And did you hear by $32,000, the whole city?
Entire city.
next 18,000 people.
I heard it.
Okay.
Okay, all right. You can find the yellow pages. We're gonna run you guys through the highlights.
Yeah, so, yeah, thank you. Tab 2 in your binders, we're gonna head to next.
Find the yellow pages, and we're gonna start, so we'll start with, at the top of the page there, we have, working capital minimums and stabilization, policy target balances. And this budget that we brought before you, meets those working capital and reserve requirements. So I will move through the different departments next. So in administration, you see, and then I wasn't gonna talk about this one, but it was asked at the finance committee, the election costs. And what that represents is everybody that moves into our city that files to vote. We have to pay the county for the cost of them registering to vote. So we have to pay that for each one of our citizens. We also have to pay our cost for the election that will happen next November. So that $175,000 represents our cost of the election. It's a 2-year budget, but there's only one election. There's 2 years of
I'm following you.
registrations, but there's only gonna be next November. We don't,
So we're not contributing to like this, the election coming this
the
November.
presidential
Next
election,
month?
we have to pay for it for our citizens.
I mean, our,
That's a fair question. I know we pay for our election.
yeah,
We only pay for voter registration this year because we do not have any council
Yeah.
or mayor election. So
Oh,
we always pay for, and it's based on
But it's
population, so we pay
yeah,
that.
right, every other.
So if the fire district runs a levy, they have to pay for that cost, even though it's within the city or the school district. So we have to pay, as Randy said, only for the council elections, and then over the next 2 years,
Yeah.
the voter registrations. Yes.
Can I ask a question? So I know hearkening back to a conversation around fireworks and putting that on the ballot.
We would have paid something more.
Addition, like
Yeah, probably 40.
compounded or, okay,
About-
it's for every one election. Okay.
Yeah, so if we,
So it's not like we
We
can
piggyback-
double up and say,
we piggyback on another election, then we share in the cost of that. So the most economical time to do it would be when our council elections happen. Because we're on the ballot, but a presidential election could work too.
Yeah.
Or any November election, but to run a special election,
Yeah.
last time we did one, about 40 grand in the city.
And that's
So-
why when I talked to Paul Andrews, he mentioned the figures was anywhere from a minimum of 15 grand to 80,000. 80,000 being if nobody else is on the ballot, 15 if there's a lot of people on the ballot. So always keep that in the back of your mind.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, legal services, that's a big number, $1.3 million. Remember, this is a biennial budget, it's 2 years worth of legal services. But it's not just Charlie's firm, Ainsley Best.
That's not Charlie's.
So in that, 335,000 of that, on an annual basis, so cut that 1.3 in half, is Ainsley Best. It's our HR attorney. We have, a civil service attorney, and I'm missing one.
We have a public defender and prosecuting attorney.
Yeah, those are outside of that. So we have prosecutor at $142,000 and public defender at $166,000. So that's what the breakdown of that. So it's a lot of different skill sets. And Charlie's firm represents our general counsel and our land use work from Jennifer Robertson. So the next line item is the housing services of $170,000. That's the $1,406. Remember, we were talking about putting a contract in place for KCR to do rental assistance. So this is programming $170,000 to do that type of activity. It has to be for housing and homelessness, that type of activity. In the first quarter, Noah and I are committed to getting a contract in place to be able to expend these dollars. I'm also in conversation with Housing Kitsap to potentially do something with moving deposits for folks that are low income, moving into subsidized housing and they can't afford the damage deposit. But that's in its infancy also. There's the lodging tax funds, which is $100,000 each year. John's just starting that process. Then dropping down, we've got every year the state auditor comes and visits us and gives us an audit and they hand us a bill for that. And so $30,000 a year. Then there's nice surface tablets that you guys have and everybody within the city has the same infrastructure. We replace those every 4 years. Keep them current. And so the replacement of equipment is $90,000 over the next 2 years. And then we also have a number of software subscriptions from your Windows, 365, Office 365 to service agreements for our servers and other things. So all of those software contracts total $500,000 over the next 2 years.
That's still including Iowa County.
For
What point long time ago for IS support?
No,
Okay.
we have a contract. We have our own, we have 2.5 people now. Back then we had one person.
Okay.
And.
Well, the security.
But then we had half a string employees.
Security.
The court didn't ask for anything in this budget other than, so it's a maintenance budget. They got some new carpet and paint here recently, so.
Spoiled.
So the police department, you see the bill for 911 there. We've got supplies and weapons replacements, vehicles, maintenance and operation. And then the one that's is jumped up 20% year over year is the prisoner care, which is our jail cost. Up the hill there, they are raising the bed days by 20%. And we don't really have any alternative other than to pay.
What does that mean, raising the bed days?
So how much they charge us per day for a bed up there at the jail?
The bed day rate, okay.
The bed day rate, yeah. And the biggest driver to that was healthcare. They went out to bid on their healthcare contract and the contract came back $1 million more. So.
Yeah. Somebody came and gave a presentation, said they're trying to get a doctor on staff or a nurse or somebody.
Just curiosity, is that a fixed cost or is that depends on how many people go there?
Depends on how many people we put in jail.
So it could go up, could go down.
Yeah.
Okay, this is
We hope
historic.
this is the right number.
Yeah, no, I was just curious.
How many we put in jail? Like
Yes.
our officers?
Yeah. How many?
No. We want to be hard on crime.
You're right. It's not how many the council puts in the jail, it's how many the police officers arrest, and then they go through the legal process.
You want to call the sheriffs to make the arrest.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, if it happens in the city.
It doesn't work that way.
They're gonna
Can we
respond.
just escort them out of the city?
Yes. Get the chase. Chase.
All right, moving on, community development, you'll see later that we defund, and later in this presentation, we defund a staffing position that we haven't been able to fill for an inspector for a couple of years. And with the housing slowing down just a little bit, we believe, we're concerned, since we haven't been able to fill the position, we're programming those dollars into consultant services. And if it continues to slow down, it will allow us to manage that better by dialing it down and not having to worry about laying off an employee. So, The derelict vessel building and vessel abatement, that's really go ahead.
No, I was waiting for you to finish because I got a question on that one, if you don't.
Okay, go ahead.
Have we been getting our funds back from,
I
on
was gonna,
vessel?
I was gonna talk to
That's
that.
why I was gonna wait.
Okay, all right. I thought you wanted to talk about the one prior.
No,
Okay,
I'm
so it's a
waiting.
status quo number, but typically what happens is we expend the money, provided the legislature fills the bucket up on their side, the chief and his staff then seek reimbursement from the state, and it really revolves back into us. Buildings that we tear down typically don't work that way. We put a lien on the property, and we likely never see our money, but we need to deal with derelict and dangerous buildings, from time to time. So anyway, so that's it's a similar number that we've had in this last budget.
We'd see that money when that property sells, if it sells.
So,
Somewhere down the road.
Yeah.
maybe. So we don't count on getting it back.
Yeah, because we're at the bottom of the.
Yeah. Okay. So, where we at? The community center and plaza and shoreline, that 151, we already in design of the Orchard Street Plaza and the shoreline restoration work. And this is just programming dollars to finish up that design, as we complete, the design for everything for downtown. We've got in public works, the top line, we spent $11 million on this building. We didn't anticipate, part with the project, we discovered where some of our water intrusion was coming from our planters. The contractor is fixing those drainage challenges and sealing it up. We didn't want to pay them to do landscaping around the building. So I've got a plug number in here for landscaping. So when the project is done with the construction, that's for our crews to go in. It isn't probably going to be as robust as it was before, but that's what that represents. You guys are familiar with the smart meters stuff that we're doing, and the radio reads. The storm tree canopy maintenance, that $30,000, that is part of our new, I think it's our storm permit, and we have to do a mapping of our tree canopy. So 2/3 of these dollars is that mapping exercise. And the other third, about $10,000, is if we identify deficiencies, we've got money to put to plant trees from that body of work.
When will we hear more about that project?
When we do the work, I would imagine.
Okay. I'm not sure I understood everything you were saying.
So the NPDS permit requires tree canopies in the right of ways, whatnot, the new permit as this came out. And so, sorry, but,
Yeah, no, go
so,
ahead. You know more
yeah,
about this.
so, what he's saying is between the maintenance and the surveys of surveying all of our, which could go in our cartograph, as an asset.
Yeah.
But then we have to add trees to areas that don't meet those requirements.
Okay, so that's the mapping exercise.
Yeah.
So mapping exercise first, and then we put some dollars in there to put trees in.
So $5
When
grand,
you figure out where we have
That's
deficiencies.
Right.
it could require irrigation.
So the next line item, that 95,000, is an ecology requirement, I believe, and it's an update to our stormwater action plan. And so we have to do an action plan related to our storm permit every few years, and that's up and needs to be funded. The 300,000, those of you that toured the marina, you guys talked about a little bit of the groundwater intrusion we're getting in the sewer system. One of the positions that got funded is in the sewer utility, and we need to do some work TBing and identifying where this water is coming from. It's primarily in the older part of the city, and structures may need to be replaced or slip lining sewer lines, but we're putting some dollars in there to make repairs as we identify where the sources of this groundwater that is entering our sewer system. The next, that's the sewer plant, our portion of the sewer plant, that $3.5 million. And then the two, our liability insurance runs about $1 million a year at their facility.
A lot of the storm stuff should be covered though under our new increase, our rate increase and stuff. So we should be pretty solid, right?
Yeah, that, we just get, but we have to budget those
Oh, for
dollars
sure.
to be able to expend it. Yeah, that's right.
Mhm.
In the transportation side of it, you know, we've got a bridge there at Lund. We need to do annual maintenance on that, to make sure it's safe. And then the Public Works asked for about $1.7 million for paving to really move the needle out there, but we just couldn't, find that many dollars, you know. Three things impact the general fund the greatest. The salaries of our police officers, paving our streets and our parks. Those are really, and, you know, we just couldn't find, you know, the last two budgets, we put $1 million each year and we got darn close to that in this budget, so. Last one that I just want to call out is the street telemetrics and for the 150,000, and that's to replace the traffic control out cabinet at Tremont and Sydney is become outdated technology. It's got traffic loops in the ground and we'll likely put in optical sensors on that. Someday we're gonna have a roundabout there, but it's probably 10 years or more away. And those traffic controls can't wait that long. I'm not gonna talk about, Noah's got a capital, you know, there's $50 million in this capital budget. Noah's got a presentation in itself on that. I will say embedded in that $3.2 million is dollars for breaking the pathway project into segments, funding a design for the first segment from West Bay to Mitchell Point. And because with shoreline regulation changes, we have to update our design and go through get a new environmental permits. And so we have to go through the environmental permitting process. There's also dollars in that 3.2 million to acquire the use of those tidelands that need to be on there, and also dollars to remove the homes. But we can't remove the homes until we get permission from our funding partners. We could go in and remove the homes, but we would lose our mitigation. So we've got to work through a process with our funding partners to get their approval to bank this mitigation, which is unprecedented, but that's what we're trying to make happen. But we are putting dollars in this budget to remove those homes. So when we get that permission, we'll be able to go out bid, and we've got engineers' estimates for what those will cost.
And what's that budget right there? Is that the,
It's in that there's other things in that $3.2 million also.
Okay.
And Noah's got a separate presentation for all of us,
okay,
$49 million.
yeah, we said, okay, thank you.
Okay, the next section is the equipment replacement revolving fund, and that's, we make payments on all of our cars that we have. When they're wore out, then we've got money, most of the money at least, not always all the money we need to replace those vehicles. And then when you look at the bottom portion, it says 2024 rebudgets. So these are vehicles that were in this current budget. We've ordered the vehicle, but we're not going to receive it before the end of the year. So we need to rebudget those dollars so that when that car comes in January or February, we have the budget authority to purchase those cars that we've already ordered. Go ahead.
So these EV cars and all the cars that you're saying right here, that is for our next budget. We
Yes.
already have our cars right now. That's all been purchased, cause I think I went
So,
around.
That's the bottom section.
That's the bottom section. This upper section where it
Oh.
says 25, 26 replacements, those are the vehicles that we're going to purchase in this next biennium.
Right. Okay.
25 and 26, the
Mhm.
bottom portion is rebudgeting because we've ordered cars and we haven't received them yet.
Mhm.
And we don't pay for the car until we receive it.
And a couple of items in the rebudget, for example, the vehicle lift for the shop. We just didn't complete that project. It was in the budget, so we're rebudgeting again because we just didn't get to it. So it's not, I think it was ordered, it was actually I think it takes more work, but they're actually improving the shop to be able to lift vehicles up, heavier vehicles.
I mean, we're just moving the money from one budget.
We're
year
just
to the next.
reappropriating, it was already
Yeah.
reappropriated, once we had plans to. move forward.
And many of these cars we've ordered, and we don't want to, you know, because we cancel the order and our 2024 car, we're gonna pay for a more expensive car, 2025 model.
So we already bought 4, big, trucks, and we already have them, so that's already paid for the, public works. So that's probably down here, right? The 4,
Re-budgets, yeah.
Re-budget.
and,
So if we didn't get them, we didn't pay for them. So the best way I can
We're
explain.
not spending it twice.
Yeah, the best way I can explain it to you is, we did this earlier at Finance Committee. We planned on being at $2.6 million in the general budget at the end of this year.
mhm,
We are now expecting at the beginning, or at the end of this year, to have $9 million in that fund.
mhm,
Because we didn't spend those dollars
mhm.
this year. So we're gonna move them next year and still spend them.
We
Okay.
approved the cars, we haven't purchased. them.
No, well, no, we've already purchased the 4, trucks, because we already have them.
But we've already approved
We already-
these other
we
ones
already
down
have
here.
purchases, that's separate from this.
Right, so what I'm kind of saying is we already have 6, vehicles, we already have 6 cars for the city. And then we are, going to purchase 2 more EV cars, that's almost 200, so that's 6. And then we're gonna have 2 more, so is that 6, 7, 8 cars that we're going to have for the future for the city? Is that correct?
Not really.
No, we're gonna have way more than that.
We're.
There's
the-
4
the-
police
this
cars.
Top portion right up here is replacing vehicles we have. They might be we're likely replacing a fossil fuel car with an electric car. But this first section that says 25, 26, this is our equipment replacement revolving fund. And we are replacing vehicles we already have. So the very first line there is 4 police vehicles.
Mhm.
It's we're gonna take 4 police vehicles we have, take them out of service and we're replacing them with new vehicles, because these 4 are worn out.
Right, and I get the police cars.
Okay, and then in DCD, we have 3 vehicles that are fossil fueled, and they're going to be replaced with EVs. So they are new vehicles, but they're replacing existing vehicles that are wore out. So this whole first section is replacing vehicles
Are
that we
you
already
trying to
have
go all EV on the city?
with our light duty vehicles and our passenger cars we're required to by state law. That is the mandate.
Currently, that is, that could
I
change.
disagree. I don't think it's a mandate that we have to go all EV cars for the city. And we can look into that later. It's not a time right now, but that's not a mandate that we have to go all EV cars in the city. I know that for a fact. But anyway,
So the second,
that's,
not all
we can all
cars.
look at later.
It's not all cars.
all right, so then the second half of this is, as we said, the budget. So are we good with this document and ready to move on? I've got some pages that are the black and white. You have a question?
No, you.
No, I'm
Substantial.
gonna cover, these are,
They're
gonna
the
get
same as
covered
this.
is these, and it's the
Okay.
details better on these. I will say, there's one item that, we tumbled to today in a project meeting for the non-motorized project out on Bay Street. Not Bay
No.
Street.
No, Sydney.
Sydney, in front of Sydney Glen Elementary, the safe routes to school. Okay, so we've got a grant to do the sidewalks and the bike lanes, okay? And we've got money in the budget to pave the street like we did in front of Cedar Heights, because but we have, in that section in front of Cedar Heights, we laid a new future sewer line. The engineers are planning for that sewer line, but they hadn't communicated that to the finance department yet. So there's $1 million in sewer line that's paid for from capital facilities charges that we want to lay in the street before we pave the street, because we don't, 3 years from now, we don't want to have this beautiful new street and cut it and put a new sewer line in it, so.
Mayor, can you back up again? I lost where you were just segment you were talking about. You're talking in front of Sydney Glen.
Sydney Glen.
Okay,
So-
as we went from Pottery to Sydney Glen back to,
I'm sorry, so on the Cedar Heights project,
right.
we laid a sewer line that got us all the way to Berry Lake Road,
Ah, now I got it.
okay?
Okay.
So
got it.
this next project, we're gonna attach onto the Berry Lake Road and take it down to Ruby Creek,
I got it.
okay?
Thank you.
And then
For $1 million?
for $1 million. That's what they said.
That's pretty good.
Well,
If-
I would say
if-
that's per estimate.
If they can,
That's
if they
Yeah,
can do that,
that's it.
if they can do that for $1 million, like,
Okay, and then the goal is, after we lay that, we've got new pipes in the ground and we're gonna lay, pave the street down. So anyway, the finance committee was supportive of adding that, into the budget, so.
does
All
that
right,
include,
let's
does that include
go-
blacktop?
Yeah, so, yeah, that,
Complete?
yeah,
Yes.
it won't be, I don't know, Dennis, is it a complete overlay or is it gonna be like we did? I think it'll be like we did in front of Cedar Heights, where we cut the road.
Where it is.
We're gonna do, the full lane width. So it could be a little bit of patchwork, but a lot of that right now has got brand new asphalt on it anyway from the apartment building. So we wouldn't, unless we disturb that, we wouldn't overlay over that again, I don't think,
I don't think, yeah.
so. Okay, let's go to this document that runs vertical, and this is things that were in the budget, and some of these didn't make the budget. So remember I talked about we added money for plans for inspection services. So this first line item here is the defunding of that FTE position that we haven't been able to fill. We have a retirement for the office manager in DCD at the end of the year. And a couple of these line items are creating overlap, and because she's gonna be gone, half the year on vacation. She's got so much vacation leave that she's pretty much gonna be gone the second half of the year. And so somebody still needs to do the work. So we're gonna hire her replacement probably halfway through the year. And so we need to be able to fund both positions through the end of the year. And then you'll see.
Can I just ask, making a dumb question, does the city have a policy on using its leave? Can somebody actually stack that next leave up?
Yes.
They were
Yes.
3 and 4, you know.
We do have a
Yeah,
policy.
240 hours is how much, if she said,
Two
I'm done
months.
tomorrow, we'd have to write her a check.
Yeah.
For it, so she can either take it and be on leave, or we'd be obligated to write her a check.
6 weeks.
No.
1.5 months.
No.
You'll see farther down to the 3 months, and that's the backfilling of the person that's likely gonna take that promotion. Moving down, it says DCD, parking enforcement, additional costs. We've been talking about doing, Saturday parking enforcement. I know that's something that the downtown merchants are very passionate about. We've got the farmer's market taking up a lot of the parking where they're currently located. The port is supportive of this idea. I think it's primarily their patrons, actually, the boat users that are in the merchant lot, behind the building, but, and beyond that, so this is adding, 8 hours a week to the 2 part-time people that are currently 20 hours to make them 28 hours. In the summertime, we would do Saturday enforcement. And Nick has seen, and he can speak to this better than I can, a tremendous amount of growth in the number. Our parking enforcement program is really about dealing with the commuters and the downtown parking and the county campus. And we don't have much capacity to deal with complaints related to parking in the residential areas of the city. And this would create some capacity for those folks to go out and do some, visiting, complaints that we get. We're probably not gonna be driving around enforcing, chalking tires throughout the city. There, in McCormick Woods, there aren't any 2-hour or 4-hour zones, but we do get complaints, quite often from people complaining about somebody parking where they shouldn't be parking. And so, and it just, they don't have a lot of capacity to deal with that. So did I capture that pretty well, Nick?
Parking on the street and some of the widest.
Okay.
And you're saying this is on the weekend?
No, some of this would be on the weekend downtown, Saturday parking enforcement, and then adding additional hours during the week so that they can deal with other areas than downtown.
Like putting a new sign
They
where,
don't do signs, they enforce parking violations.
Okay,
So by writing tickets for parking violations.
and are we
These and two.
working together with the bank? Because the bank is always open and across from the bank is always open. Are we?
Those are private lots. You can't enforce
Well, they're
those.
private, but I thought we as a city are working with them, so we have plenty of parking. I mean, anyone can park there anyway, and I don't think they get a ticket. So I'm just
You
saying,
wouldn't get a ticket from us, but if you parked in somebody's private lot and signed you shouldn't be there, they could tow you. But we have no role in that at
As
all.
long as they don't live in it.
Right.
I'm just saying the
Easy,
bank isn't
easy.
open on the weekends, so.
But we can't, that isn't, we don't enforce parking even on the weekends in our private lot. This is only to enforce parking, behind Josephine's. Those lots are city streets.
Oh, yeah, and they're only like 2 hours or 4 hours. I get that. I get that.
Right, and we have a lot of voters that, when the farmer's market is taking up that parking, coming on Friday night, parking somewhere downtown because of parking enforcement is gone for the weekend, and they don't come home till Sunday. And so we've got, the court has places for them to park, and we've got to get them to park
Mhm.
where they should be parking. And the only way we're gonna change that behavior is to write some tickets.
Well, you can have it 2-hour parking.
Quick aside.
Hold on,
Yeah.
Brian,
Yeah, go ahead.
he's been waiting.
I was just going to add that the other issue that we have is that the time restricted parking in downtown and around the courthouse, there are set routes that you drive that chalk the tires, that you can control the entire district. It takes a fixed amount of time, so there isn't any time left over in the current cycle for them to actually go out to these farther afield areas to do parking enforcement. So they have maybe a half an hour in the morning and a half an hour in the evening to investigate all other complaints that aren't time restricted. Downtown parking restrictions. The other benefit of increasing the hours, our parking enforcement officers never see each other in person, and there's no time where they can actually be in the same meeting at the same time. And so they're leaving each other both behind, but that's the extent of their interaction. So it creates some overlap, but also it really is about these areas where they need to take a full-size vehicle and drive up in Norman Woods. Because the car that has to move for 3 weeks, and we get a request.
I was
Just one, Eric, I'm just curious, conversation, because I was trying to do both. What was the?
I'll ask the difference in the, 2 seasonal workers versus, 1 full-time maintenance worker. And I would much rather have
Okay,
1 full-time.
I just wanted to.
We'll get there.
Yeah, that's a good topic. Yeah. Nick, do you know how many of those complaints are for Saturday in residential areas?
None of the complaints are about Saturdays, there are always other issues out in the city, and it's usually vehicles that are broken down and haven't moved, or at least are perceived to be inoperable, or somebody blocking the driveway, or somebody parked facing the wrong way, there's all sorts of things. that
During
are-
the week, the work week?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, those aren't specific to the weekend or during the week, and we get to them as we can, but we set expectations very low for those calls, because we aren't staffed to respond to those.
Do you happen to have any of the data around number of calls, et cetera, that?
Well, I have a little bit of data. I can tell you that year to date, we've written 1,469 parking tickets.
Oh, moly, nice.
We receive about 30 complaints for investigation of parking violations per month, where they have to go out into the field and take photographs and document conditions, and either refer things to the police department, or sometimes it's code enforcement who deals with certain issues. Sometimes it's things that the finance department or the clerk deals with in terms of different permits that we issue for certain things, that those complaints go to parking first and then have to be rerouted. So there's about 30 or so calls per service on average per month. And I get copied on all of those emails, which is constantly.
All right, enough on parking? All right, so we also, within Nick's budget, we have an assistant planner that we hired, who's doing great work as he gets his certifications and grows in his field. We have a process where we promote him to an associate planner, and that is planned for during this biennium, as soon as he gets those additional certifications. If we don't provide that promotion, It's just like our engineers, when they become more valuable and we run the risk of losing them to a neighboring city, because everybody's looking for planners and engineers. So we need to, where appropriate, give promotions to folks as they become more valuable to the city. This is that related to the retirement, the overlap. Then we've got a stormwater position that is part of our permit that's funded in this budget for the additional activities related to our permit. And then we have that sewer position that I talked about being funded by the sewer utility to do that water intrusion work. We've got something we talked about in the retreat that you guys wanted to see more summer hires. We attempted to have more summer hires this last summer. So we had the ability to have 6. We went through about 10 people and we used the dollars for, as we learned through the finance committee, for about 4 people. None of them, you know, a typical summer hire is here 2.5 to 3 months. Sometimes they're here a little longer. Sometimes we get rid of them sooner than even the 2 months. So Chris, the ops manager, he calls them summer help, and summer not. And so anyway, we talked about it. This is the retreat that you guys wanted. This is pretty low hanging fruit. This is 2 years of summer hire adding for each one of those to add some capacity in our parks and in grounds to be able to do some more, provided we can hire enough people to do the work. That's part of the challenge. Go ahead.
To piggyback off that, because you're totally accurate. Some are workers and some aren't. I was one of them back in '95. Or there you go.
Take your guess on which one.
Where were you playing hideout?
Hey, 30 years later, here I am. All right. I would, if possible, I would rather see a full-time employee than 2 summer help employees.
And I would too, those, so that's.
I know, because of the benefits, I understand, but I mean,
$120,000 versus that parks position is $280,000.
yeah.
So it gets us partway.
It's chipping away at the cost of it, but
Yeah.
a full-time employee can actually do some technical things, actually fix things at parks and can do things that summer helpers just can't do, so.
Yeah, so.
I got a question on the seasonal work. So, yeah, and that's quite a bit, or, you know, let's say 60,000 for seasonal work.
So that's for
2 years.
2 years.
2 years.
Oh,
2 years.
that's right, okay,
2 years.
30, okay,
30 a summer.
you're right. Now, I'm kind of curious where I wanted the beautify with my hanging baskets. Did that get in here?
It's not in here because I would need a body to do it.
So that's not including seasonal work then? That's not a body for seasonal work?
It wouldn't be probably appropriate to put somebody in because it has to happen 7 days a week. So
Or
operation.
6 or 5? It doesn't have to be 7 days a week to water the plants.
That's your opinion, but I'm being told they need to be, so.
No, okay, so I've asked for this, so you're not putting, honestly, I'm going like 10,000 or less for hanging baskets to beautify our downtown.
The cost isn't the baskets, it's the labor to water the baskets.
So we don't have the labor, but yet we can pay almost $100,000 for our EV cars. And that's in our budget, but we can't do beautifying our downtown. You know, this was very important to me. And you're saying, nope, we're not gonna get our hanging baskets. I'm going bare minimum, and you're saying it's not in our budget.
It's not in the mayor's budget, you're correct, so.
Okay, well, I hope it's in another budget then.
Moving on to things that are in the mid-year review. So the first set of items were things that are funded in the mayor's budget, proposed budget. And the next are 4 items that we couldn't find the funds to do, but we're proposing to bring them back at the mid-year review next year after we see how we perform in 2025. The finance department, has many departments have seen increases to staff. The finance department hasn't in a number of years. We grown our operation. We have a number of capital projects. And they have a need, in help with the capital projects, the accounting and that of those. So, but that is a mid-year review item. We've got 2 different police positions here that, weren't funded, but we hope to bring them back and look at them at the mid-year review. And also I also want to see us doing more in the parks and in beautification, but we couldn't find the dollars because it's coming out of the general fund. So,
Quick question, I realized I didn't ask during finance. A 2-year police officer is $459, a 1-year police officer is $294. Help me understand
The third police officer is for fiscal year 2026.
1
2
year.
years, 2025 cost plus 2026 cost.
I get that, right? I'm trying to see what the difference is. If it should be half,
No.
2 years, explain.
2026 would be higher than 2025.
So only a piece, remember, there's all kinds of one-time expenses, like a car and uniforms and guns and all those things.
That's the color I'm looking for. Thank you.
So
Yep,
there's
yep. Okay.
there's fixed costs associated with it, whether we, and the.
Whether
other
or
ones-
not it's a salary,
Yeah,
okay. It's
the
not a
outside salary
difference in
benefits,
just-
yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, so moving on to things that were just not even in, because we had to have a cut line somewhere. The third police officer, we're gonna consider 2 of them at the mid-year review. There was discussion early on in the budget of making, one of the parking enforcement positions full-time and have benefits, and that was the cost of that. We didn't fund that. We came back with the proposal to add additional hours, but to keep them below benefits. So they're at 28 hours right now. Yes.
Where does parking enforcement dollars, where do those go?
Where are they?
Yeah, tickets?
Tickets?
Yeah, where's that money go?
Finance department, I know the court, doesn't the state get a piece of it? I don't know what we get.
All that revenue is proceeding to the general fund.
It goes into the general fund?
So that could almost fund, I don't know how much money we receive in parking.
It is not a moneymaker, right?
No, I mean-
It does, there is money that comes in.
$20 a ticket.
I don't know, right?
Every year.
Yeah.
No, it is about 1,400 a
Yeah, I
year.
think that's what I read.
$20 a ticket, yeah.
Now, just because they wrote them doesn't mean the judge didn't.
No, I
dismiss
was
it.
talking to John earlier today, and I was saying, for every ticket, there's probably a court cost too,
Yeah.
I mean,
More than the ticket.
yeah, sure, so, okay,
Okay.
just curious, thanks.
All right, the next one's a little bit complicated, so work with me. No, I'm down below, it says Public Works CE1 and CE2 underneath there, and then it says Program Manager. Right now, we have an open Engineer 2 position, and we've been trying to fill it for quite some time. We have 2 candidates, we have some interview, I know one interview next week. Okay, and if we find the right candidate, we want to fill it with an engineer position. At least the Public Works Department wants to do it that way. And that's what it's been allocated. If they're unsuccessful, and I've given Chris a deadline of November 1st, so that we can bring this back into this budget. This is taking the City Engineer 2 position, defunding it, and creating a project manager position. So they would be an inspector, a supervisor of the other 2 project managers out there, but they wouldn't have an engineer's license. And so that defunds an engineering position and then creates a project manager position.
Just so I understand this, in the chart here, in the mayor's budget, not you, sorry. It's basically, that's why you have 2 credits and then 1 expenditure.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, one's for each year,
Got it.
and it's even more, if you want to get really confused, it's even more complicated than that. Because just like the planner, our engineer 1 right now,
Yep.
he is going to take the test next year. And so why it's defunding the engineer one position, because if he passes the test and becomes a true engineer, then he's gonna get a promotion to an engineer two position. But he's gotta pass the test first. There's two additional positions that HR is pretty passionate about. One is, one of them was your guys' communication position. We talked about it at the retreat. I couldn't find $300,000 to fund that, so the budget has the $25,000 a year for a contract, just like we've been utilizing. I think we've been doing a better job. It's not perfect, but $50,000 a year is a lot less than $300,000 a year. I haven't found the 300, yeah, 50,000 over the 2 years, so it's.
Who is making those posts?
It is
it?
Josh creates the
Good
content.
job.
Josh and I work with Public Works
Yeah.
or whoever
Yeah,
to create the content. And then the clerk's office between Brandy and Janine, they're the gatekeepers of our Facebook page and our website.
Good job, Brandy.
So it's,
That's good, yeah.
Doing much better.
it's not perfect,
Nice.
because there's a lot of people involved in it.
Mhm.
But we're making it, and I've kind of put it on Josh too, to be more proactive.
Yeah.
We all get busy,
Yeah.
hey, so I put in really good direct contact with Dennis, and he'll bug Dennis, hey, what's going on with these projects?
Sure.
So I'm not he doesn't get stuck in the middle with me.
Right.
So
No,
are they
it's a lot
getting paid
better.
extra for this, or that's
No.
just their job? Cause you said that,
No,
you're trying to get someone
He
to
said no.
do that, to pay extra.
no, this is a no.
We point to no.
It was
for-
$309,000 to have an employee
Yeah.
with
Mayor, can I have a
benefits.
point of order?
Yes.
We have a lot of conversations going on. I would ask my fellow council members, just one at a time, please.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody's noticed, Fred's noticed it and I've noticed it, that we can hear conversations much better in the room. I don't know if it's because of the improved paneling.
No,
You know.
it's the same family.
Okay, but we're definitely, the acoustics have improved somewhat. So could we please just do one conversation at a time, please?
Mhm.
Councilman, to answer your question, we couldn't find the money for the communication specialist, okay? So what I maintained in this budget is the contract for $25,000 a year for what we're currently doing in that process. And we'll need to renew that contract, probably next year. Councilmember Trenary?
And is that the same amount we've previously been paying
Yes,
for that? service?
25,000 a year is what we put in the
Thank you.
budget for last year. Yes.
I just noticed the HR by communication specialist, so was that only for HR?
No, it was just,
Were they
it's
gonna-
admin, it's just an admin.
I thought that's a more logical fit with maybe the city clerk.
Yeah,
Than HR.
but admin is,
HR performed the work to kind of evaluate the positions, costs and submitted
Yeah.
the documentation.
Yeah,
So
but
we
would the
just,
communication
Yeah.
person report to
It just-
HR?
not necessarily.
Okay, I
It
didn't
was
see
just
the-
Debbie did the body of work
Okay.
to prepare the
Okay.
job description.
Okay.
And to looking at our neighbors, the only other, so the county has a communications person, a team.
A
Okay,
team.
but they're a bigger animal than we are. Bremerton, when I asked Greg Wheeler, I said, so who does your communications? And he said, well, it's Greg's administrative assistant, but I gave up my administrative assistant like 3 years ago, so. That's how they're tackling it, it's Greg Wheeler and his administrative assistant are doing it, it's just part of her duties. And, when COVID came along, the person we had, that was my administrative assistant, she was halftime, taking care of my calendar and appointments, and then being up at the front counter. And we used those dollars to add a person in HR, because we're growing so fast that it needed help in HR, so.
Mayor, just quick time check, if we could get through the next 2 pages in 5 minutes, then.
Yeah, that's right.
Directors.
Okay, last one is, and Debbie is pretty passionate about the fact that we should have a safety and risk management coordinator. Part of our public works group out there, but it just couldn't find the dollars to do that either. Going to this next page here, that was bodies, this is things. And so the clerk's office is asking for a new website. It's $40,000 a year. We're paying a little over $1,000 a year for the website we have. It's not very robust, but it's very cost effective. That would have been paid for through multiple funds, but also the finance department is advocate. So these are all mid-year. We said things we'd look at in mid-year, this first section. The budget module, and I know that Noah showed it to some of the finance committee members. It'd be a really cool thing to have. It would help streamline the budget process and help us to share this process with the public. But it is $90,000. So we're gonna look at that at the mid-year review. Well 7, you just recently, we'd like to pre-fund our first year of loan payments. When we take a loan, we took a loan out on well 7 just in the last council meeting or two. The water fund wasn't healthy enough to do that, so we'll need to do that in the second half of the biennium because we'll have a loan payment due the following year, so we'll need to do that. The Public Works is asking for a facilities needs assessment, and that also we can find funding for that. We said we'd make it a mid-year review. Public Works is also asking for a pavement assessment and conditioning.
Can we go back to the facility needs assessment? Is that all facilities?
Yes, I believe so.
Yes.
Okay.
Just looking at the condition of our facilities, City Hall's brand new, but the rest of our buildings aren't. So pavement condition assessment. There's $90,000 to look at an intertie between us and West Sound Utility District. We thought that the water fund just couldn't afford to pay for it. The next one to $300,000. We normally put $300,000 a year from water capital into the operations fund to pay for water line replacement. Instead of putting it into this fund, we know we have a project down on Bay Street. We've just programmed that same $300,000 into the Bay Street project, and it's not in. But what we likely at mid-year review would like to consider if the fund balance is healthy enough to add some additional dollars into water main replacement. We'd like to get rid of the water tower out there by South Shed on City by Paula Powers, but the fund balance couldn't support that. The software Civic Plus is.
Excuse me, Mayor. I apologize.
Yeah.
On that water tower, are we doing inspections with that to make sure we're not in any type of? I don't mean to say danger, but at some point in time,
it doesn't hold water anymore.
Right.
The upper structure is what is not in good shape, but I think the building, I don't think that we're in jeopardy of falling.
There was an engineering analysis not too distant past, so it was inspected at the time.
Okay.
I don't think we're in great danger.
I just, over time, I don't want to lose sight of that one because we've talked about it for years now.
Yes, it's something we want to do. It's just finding the dollars to do it. The Civic Plus, that would be a replacement for C-Click Fix. So the county, C-Click Fix is gets that county, and we get that for free. The rub to it is all of the requests for service go into their countywide, and there's a day or two lag from when a citizen, reports something for it to get to our Public Works Department for us to address it. So we would like to have our own program to do that. Unfortunately, it costs $20,000 a year to do that, and the county's program is free. So we're gonna have to deal at least for another year with that delay from when it's
County
reported.
court says.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yep.
Not on the weekends either.
And then not during the weekend, yes.
This would also include the interlink with our asset management system.
Yeah. And then lastly, in the mid-biennial review items, the Public Works Department asked for $1.7 million in street preservation and maintenance. We found $950,000. So we've got, if there's additional dollars, we'd like to do more paving on our streets, but that was the delta from what they asked for. Things that didn't make the cut, and some of these are relatively small. The HR department would like to do a survey for the inclusion commission. And if that survey got done, then do an all-staff training. The police department, has the Axion, body cameras. And right now, the officer has to turn it on manually or it activates if they draw either one of their weapons. This would be the car door, correct? They would open it.
When you turn your lights completely all the way on, so
Okay.
you're running priority to
Okay, so it would be a camera in the car? Or-
No, it's another step to take human error out of the cameras being activated.
Okay, so once they activate their lights, then their body camera would automatically come on.
And that will actually pick up the road system in front of them, or?
No, you would need to have cameras in the car, then
Right,
initially looked at it. and-
Okay, it just initiates the.
So that when they pop out of the car, they don't have to worry about activating their camera.
Yeah.
Because because they got their lights on, they're hustling to get someplace.
$7,000 covers all officers.
Yes.
For all of our patrol cars.
The next couple of items are related to the Emergency Operations Center that the police department asks for. We've got some firsthand experience with the hurricane and went and visited a friend last week and helped out. Let's see, we historically spent with our old heating system about $30,000 a year. With baling wire and duct tape, keeping it operational. We don't believe we're gonna need that level of maintenance for sure this next year, because the system's all brand new when you need to replace filters and so on and so forth. But, so we defunded maintenance out of this contract. Mid-year, we might need to put something back in. Because somebody's got to replace those filters and service the equipment down there from time to time, but it shouldn't be anywhere in the magnitude of what we were paying before. Givens Park, there was a master plan. Nick was advocating for a master plan for the baseball fields. And we did the ADA push buttons on the second floor, and there was discussion about adding that to the third floor restrooms. This next one is barricades for the festivals for road closures. Public Works asked for $100,000, I think. Nolan and I went, whoa, exactly. So, we're gonna let them, so the rub is our water barricades, a lot of the festival folks drain them and move them out of the way. These are gonna be something that takes a piece of equipment to set them, so we're gonna buy some and rent some and see how they work out versus making a $100,000 investment. So we're gonna invest about 10,000 in some new barricades. Public Works Shop is also would like to have rent an office space out there to put, because they're running out of space for people. My rub with that is I don't believe everybody that works in the field needs to have a desk.
Yes.
We have 20 plus officers sharing police officers that share 4 desks. We've got a lot of desks out of Public Works, and I think we need to just start sharing some of those spaces versus renting a trailer. And then lastly, we didn't take the water tower down, so I didn't see a need to fund the master plan for that space with the water tower in the way. Yes, sir.
I may be a little confused on this. So I see the items that are gonna be looked at mid-biennial, mid-biennial review. Is there any reason that we could not ask that these other items go to mid-biennial, or they just?
You absolutely can.
Okay.
I've got some earmarked.
Okay, okay, that's why.
And I'd rather not get bogged.
No, I didn't say that.
Information, we got a lot of information to roll through, so make notes. And as
Yep,
we
that's what I'm doing.
talk through this if there's other things you want considered at mid-year, there's no harm in that.
Yep.
If there's money, of course we want to fund it. And that ends my presentation. Now, Noah is going to give a presentation on the operating method. None of the rest of it.
Okay. So before we hop to the operating one, let's I'll make a couple notes, put thumbs here. Tab 3, that's where we'll go next. It's the income statement. So the first document the mayor walked through is really the highlights. So we tried to pull out all the interesting expenses, all the high expenses that we thought you'd want to talk about or be interested in. And all that culminates in this income statement in the fund summary report. So the budget for 25-26 has us beginning the biennium with roughly $9 million in the general fund, or one. We're anticipating revenues of $29 million to come in and spending $35 million, which means we are spending down our fund balance from $9 million to $3 million by the end of the biennium. Now, the $3 million does meet our working capital policy threshold, so that's positive. It's just we are relying on carry forward cash balance to help balance the budget in several funds, general fund, street fund, as well as a few utilities. So that's something I always like to point out, because what we have happened in the city is we've been hiring over the last couple of years pretty significantly, and expenses are just outpacing our revenues. Our revenues are strong, they're not declining, but 5% revenue growth overall isn't keeping up with the overall expenses due to cost increases in services, contracts, and labor. So just something to keep in mind, that we can build a budget. We're looking forward to future years, try not to position the city in any type of position where we'd have to lay off because of revenue shortfalls.
So you put 5% for one, but what is the expenses kind of trending out then?
I don't know if I have that somewhere. I will get back to you on that. Okay, and the reason being, because it's gonna depend on what expenses we're talking about. We're talking about salary and benefits, we're talking about the service contracts,
Yeah,
we're talking about transfers to help support other funds.
right.
Yeah.
And you don't need to get back to me, maybe the council this time, but when you say 5% and then you say expenses are outperforming that, what does that?
If you look at current expense on the funds page, it's like 20% revenues are 20% under the expenses, like 29,000 million to 36 or 35 million. And if you look at the last biennium 23-24, it was even a greater disparity, like 33 revenue and 44 expenses. So that itself is higher than the 5% revenue increase being projected.
Yeah, and I'll see if I can quantify that in a meaningful way.
Yeah, okay.
That actually tells the story of the expense growth. I mean, the salary and benefits will be an easy way, because that's a fixed cost, or just employing people. The nuance is gonna be, well,
Right.
how many people did we add, right? So that changes throughout a biennial period. As you guys are seeing, well, we got some things targeted for mid-biennial review. Last mid-biennial, we did add officers and added deputy chief, and restructured, and we redid the public works department. So by the time you get to the end of the budget, it looks a lot different from where you began the budget.
Yeah, so that context is important too, then.
Yeah. The other comment is 002 is our street fund again. We're beginning at $3.3 million and ending with $1 million. Still meets our policy threshold, but again, spending cash to cover operations and those kind of things. So I have the income statement in here overall, so it can show that each fund is solid. That we're ending with positive revenues. The other tab I want to point out is, I don't think we're gonna get to this tonight, but I'm just gonna point out so we can take these home. Tab 4 has a high level review of the capital budget. Looking at the time, we'll probably talk about this next week, and I'll bring some more project detail that we can actually talk through. Sure. Okay, the next tab 5, we have this preliminary budget. This focuses on departments and expenses. I just want to kind of point this out for you, for your enjoyment and reading some other time. But the first page is going to be a summary of the departments. And you'll see fiscal year 2025 represented in 2026. And then they'll have a total. And then the next document, the next page should be a breakdown of that same department by that specific fiscal year. So it'll be 2025 and the detail then that supports the higher general ledger requests. I'm positive to make sure that's clear, because we're giving more detail at the department level.
Excuse me, this is really the drill down.
This is really the drill down, right? Yeah. So like before, when Mayor was talking about legal expenses, and it was, I think, 1.3 million. If you turn to page 5 on that document, and in the middle, it says external legal services, $334,000. And there we identify civil services, HR Summit, regular legal services, and all those individual costs amount to the 334 for that particular GL. So it's just more detail, for you to review, that adds up to the total. But again, we were trying to keep this high level, high points, of large costs, but the detail is there for you. And we also have, within this document, we've identified debt service funds as well as the capital funds and all the enterprise funds. So you can peruse through that. And as we kind of go through these department, presentations, if there's a question, I can turn you to that department and you can look through that detail if you have a question.
So just so I understand this, and I apologize jumping in. So you'll see. So, sorry, but if I look at page
It's done by years.
35, it's done by,
That's what you're trying to
it's
say.
separate, thank you, John. So it's separate years. You look at 1 year,
And
and then there's for 2025, and there's a separate year for 2026.
Correct.
Thank you.
There's a summary page in both, and then detail 25 and detail 26.
Quick question. Are the chimes and lights expenses in one place or are they divided into different?
One place, so they should all be in the admin budget of 7, I think I have that run.
That's 15 grand or something. Saw that right?
Yeah. Page 6, the bottom there, supplies, services.
Thank you. They used to be spread all over, or it seemed like they were spread in
Oh,
different places.
I got a question. How many times were we down at the farmer's market for city council? Oh, not city council, but
As a city?
as a city.
So the farmers market initiative is relatively new. Nick, I don't know if you would like to speak to this.
Well, I thought they've done it for a couple of years in my,
No.
No,
Yeah, we
Yeah.
started this in 2023 as part of our comprehensive plan outreach. Other departments and have also gone down to do individual outreach, and so it's a good way to provide resources. And in order to stormwater, we have educational requirements under our permit, our building code, and also, we try to educate people about changes to the building code and other things, so we have tents that we can take down there and set up, and it just gives us a forum to do that. If we aren't
Does
good
meet
to
the
the
requirements.
market, we aren't guaranteed space if we want to, you know, we have it available, but we don't have enough paid vendors. to be able to-
no, and I think it's a great thing. This coming, the 19th, this coming Saturday, the last farmer's market. How many times has the city been down there this season?
My department has been down there once for planning. I can't speak to the other departments.
This summer, we didn't have, Public Works didn't have a booth, but we've done it in the past.
Police department's been there multiple times.
Yeah, that's something we did twice for DCD, and I know Public Works was down there as well, and I think he did.
So we're questioning the expenditure on the sponsorship of the fire. farmer's
No,
market, is
just
that
how
what-
many
No,
times
I'm
we
just
did.
wondering, since it's great advertisement and we do have
This is-
membership, how many times have we been down there for the season? That's all.
Yeah. The police department's down there frequently, as we've heard.
Mhm.
Nick was down there this one. We, not this summer, but the summer before, we had a number of projects like Bethel Phase 1 and, things that we're doing by the schools that we were designing, we were doing public out. So when we have a need to do public outreach on projects,
Mhm.
that's a great way to do it. We
Yeah.
just,
I guess a better question maybe we're to ask is this enough money to go every week in the future?
Yeah, I mean, since we have membership, it's like, hey,
Well,
let's
it's
get
in the-
down there.
we have it by being a member,
We can go every week.
we can go there as much as we want.
Good.
Then that was one of the things that I think out of the retreat, you guys wanted us
Yeah,
to.
well,
to be
it's
a-
in here more than once, more than, I think you got expensive to different funds, but I just wanted to make sure that all of that
It's-
collectively.
How much was it?
Yeah, that we're using it. Good advertisement.
It's $1,500 for the year. that we're-
But it also meets the NPDS requirements,
Yeah,
education outreach. I think coffee with council, I think that meets requirements as well, you know? I think we're hitting it multiple ways and that's free, you know?
Yeah.
So.
You know, my only comment is, please remember it's additional staff time. And
That's where I
staff
was gonna
expense,
go.
and
Yeah.
staff expense.
yeah, we're.
So I don't mind adding things to the plate, but it does cost us money either through overtime or through people not being able to do their jobs. when they're
Our
need be.
burn, so.
Yeah.
So just-
When we, it's a tool that's in our toolbox
Yes.
that we use when we have a need.
No,
Oh,
what
so
you're-
you're saying, I'm sorry, so we pay the, what, $1,000?
1,500.
1,500 for membership, plus we pay, we're not paying, staff to go down there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying,
Yeah,
that's,
they are.
so that, yeah, that's what you were saying, so we
Yeah.
pay that
Mhm.
plus
A lot.
an 8 hour, how many staff people go down there?
Mhm.
Well, and if I can
Depends on
add,
the project or what we're doing.
and some staff are salaried, so it's just a loss of time for them.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they don't get paid overtime.
Maybe they should come into the cost.
Where's comp time?
Accounting for salary.
So to kind of move us forward, I want to get to the operating
Sorry.
budget.
Yeah, we need to get.
I just want to point out some tools in the binder that you can refer to, some references. So I will start personnel, call departments over, and I've asked them all about 5 minutes to kind of present, but please feel free to ask questions.
Where are we at?
The operating budget presentation. So this, hopefully everybody has it. So we'll start there. I just want to hit on this first slide real quick before I get into the department, because this might address a little bit of what the question was, Scott. Again, I just like to raise kind of patterns and things I think are to be aware of. So for the current expense fund, or 001, this first slide shows that in the green you have revenue, total operating revenue, and in the expense column, all the expenses. But what we're looking at is really at salary and benefits represents 76% of our operating revenue out of the general fund. So what that tells me is that when when you're budgeting, revenue is key to how you're going to operate for the year, and 76% of our revenue is dedicated just to payroll, not the services, not the IT, not the overhead fixed lights. So there's not a whole lot of flexibility or fluff in this budget. And if I add the other support services to actually support those individuals, you would find there's a little margin there. I think probably 15% that maybe is a little bit softer, but not really, if you, once you go through the detail. It's really salaries, benefits, and supplies and services. So I just want to point that out because it's something I always keep track of, is how we trending, how we using our general fund operating budget. And these are the kind of things that kind of pause us before we add additional expenses to the payroll budget. But within that, I'll jump ahead to the finance department. I'll go first. Hopefully set the tone, and then ask my colleagues to come over and present. I'll be brief. Finance department, we've set this up to kind of give you an overview of each department. If you're not familiar or forgot kind of what we do. Finance department is responsible for all accounting and finance reporting, administrative grants, managing our capital projects, capital assets and small asset inventory. We're moving towards an investments and banking, budgeting, of course, E&R management, accounts payable, accounts receivable, payroll, utility billing, cashiering for the city. So we do a lot. I call it the central hub of the city because we touch every department, every piece. So it's a very, very busy department. When you look at the department, we have 9.5 full-time FTEs that represent about 80% of our little budget. We just don't have a whole lot of things other than people and supplies and services to operate and provide internal services. A couple of high expense items that we just want to point out is, again, SAO, mandatory audit, that they get to come in and audit us, financial software, and this will be the first time that we're looking at hiring an investment financial advisory firm to help us move our investment portfolio forward. So we haven't quite taken the next step. I had time to do a budget, but that's on the horizon. The IT department, also another heavy responsibility, as we have network administration. Cybersecurity is growing every year in the responsibility and in how we're combating that. We're investing more into our training and knowledge, especially as AI becomes more prevalent. So we're trying to gear up and we're doing a great job in our IT department, along with our hardware devices, our tablets and such, and have help desks for all our employees and candidates. IT department, again, we've talked about, we have 2.5 employees. The half employee is a person who is skilled enough to work in finance as well as backfill in IT. So that's why you see that half position there. Thank you, Brandon, for name up smoothly. Again, big expenses on the software side and IT, as you'd expect. Phone lines, all our Microsoft products, all our cybersecurity. Again, you will find that detail broken down. If you get curious about what this 560,000 is for, you can find that in the detailed budget and walk through it. So with that, Brandy has made it up, and we're going to turn this to the next page. City clerk, Fred,
Can you ask some questions?
yeah, sure. That.
Who does the grant writing?
Typically, Yeah, we don't have a specific, yeah, typically the Public Works writes the grants for the transportation. Nick and his department has written grants for this planning stuff. I've had a grant written for, some finance stuff, so generally the department specifically.
There's no one central grant writing entity.
Not writing, yeah, and then once it's awarded, then we're tracking the grants with the departments and trying to ensure that we're compliant with agreements.
Dabbled in that with a
State
consultant
or federal.
and then
No, it didn't work.
didn't work good.
Okay.
Yeah, we found that same experience.
How does the county handle it?
They used to look at somebody who would write grants for us, but that didn't work out very well. So they stopped that
Could be an
exercise
approach.
for, stopped that probably 15 years ago. Or maybe
So
more.
each department does their own?
I can only speak for DCD.
Yes, stormwater, wastewater, for sure. Each
Still
building-
district did the same.
I
Each
was just
department right
curious
there.
about that.
Any other questions on finance or IT?
Okay, city clerk, what does a city clerk do? What does our office do? Besides prepare council packets and my two passions, public records request and managing city records, what else do we do? So we also are your support staff, through social media, website. We also issue permits for facility use, carnival permits, liquor, marijuana, pawnbroker, public events, cabarets, banners, temporary vendors, exempt parking, and review the city business license that come in. Small role is risk management, so we process all your claims, tort claims, litigations, class action lawsuits, those type of things. We work with our insurance to get recoup costs from that, hopefully, and then work with our legal counsel to hopefully get litigation on our side, right, for various things. Citizen engagement, again, website, social media, press release, public notices. We assist the backups to the main phone line, do postage metering, we sort the mail. We set the rooms up for council meetings, committee meetings. So that's very high level of what we do. What else here? And various state reports.
Animal control. I like that.
Well, so
I'd like to see you.
Dog
So-
catcher.
Uh-huh.
So we submit various state reports to the state, but housed within the administrative budget, I think there's 6 different components of it. So you have the council, the mayor, the clerk, HR, you have other services, and then you have Times and Lights. So Times and Lights used to be housed in Public Works, but they were the manpower, we were the paper pushers, so paper pushers won, and so it got in the admin. But so lost that one.
Randy also does all the contract administration and management and making sure that the contracts, get
We
renewed.
manage all the contracts, we route all contracts for signatures, we make sure that it's touched and reviewed, some sort of procurement to make sure that we are abiding by procurement rules. We also issue purchase orders citywide. Public records requests we receive and route and process overall for the city over 600. Contracts, we average about 200 a year that we're processing and routing and preparing, and then all of those documents have to get uploaded into Laserfish, which you might see in our IT budget. It's very expensive, but it manages our records very well.
There's only 2 of you?
2 of them. At one time, there was 2.5. The other half was my administrative assistant, but that person became Beth in HR. So
We also, we're also the support to the mayor. We manage his calendar as much as we can. He's, each administration is different. I've had it to where it's half the administration and half it's our staff. And then we had an administration that was all 100% us. We wrote every single email, we wrote every single letter, we talked to every single person. And then we have somebody that's very self-sufficient and he manages his calendar, but we still have people that call and want to talk to him and show up at City Hall and want to do a ribbon cutting and, but he's at probably about 15 different state agency meetings most of the month. And then outside of that, it's events and staff and council meetings and committee meetings. And so we try to push documents as much as we can in front of them to get them signed and pushed out to the other departments, so. It's nice to have a mayor that can be self-sufficient, so I'm speaking from 16 years in the clerk's office. I've seen it.
Right, 3 or 4.
I've been here for 4, but I've only worked for 3. Yeah, so that's very high level, budget numbers, what are you guys getting out of this? So, when you look at the first portion of the budget, again, split by 2025, and then a couple of pages later, it's 2026. I'm just gonna speak for 2025 numbers right now. Might be a little confusing, but official publication and records, what is it called? Record services are the clerk's portion of the budget. Council, mayor, and clerk all have supplies. We have, training, we have phone expenses, we have copy machine expenses, maintenance expenses. So those are, probably 60% of your cost. The rest of it's contract driven, okay? So, we have to pay for all of our notices for going to the paper. We also have to pay for codification of our municipal code. So we do not, create the actual code book. Years ago, the clerk's office did, and we contracted it out, which is code publishing. So that's who publishes the code on behalf of the city and publishes it on our website. We don't have to do that anymore. So that's a service that we have to pay that comes out of our portion of the budget. So that's official publication pays for those 2 things, mainly noticing all the requirement notices for our official newspaper and then our codification of our code.
Can you tell me a little about outreach? What kind of email system do you use to?
So right now we use MailChimp,
MailChimp,
which
okay.
is failing miserably the last couple months. So we, thankfully for the agenda management system that we just purchased, there's a component of it that we can keep track of committee meetings as well as council meeting packets. So now it has its own listserv, if you will. So we just push it out through that system. And so we manually collect the database of, I think we're up to about 200 emails that we send out, BCC'd for regular email, old school. That's how we send our notices. So we don't have it. We have something in our system on our website that's through MailChimp. But lately it's hard to get to. So we back it up that list regularly, and if that's down, we send it old school email.
Are you the only ones who can update the website, or
Correct.
so there's no content management system for it?
Correct.
Okay.
Years ago, we wanted a unified look, and when we pass off, the hands of the website, you get different looks, you get different, writing styles, you get different fonts, pictures. So it was decided years ago to keep it all cohesive in one look, and so I think it, helps when you have one person do it, AKA Janine. I can fumble my way through it, but Janine's our, Facebook, guru, and she works with departments as much as we can. Each department, will, a couple times throughout the year, reach out to her and do a major overhaul. And so that's removing documents, adding documents, pictures, all of that stuff. So Janine does all that. Okay.
So I'm just gonna time check because I know we're doing first on mine. So Brandy's, the clerk's budget starts on page 3 and goes through page,
It's in this book here that's about 30, 60 pages, maybe.
so if you're curious about all the detail, it's near 3 to 10.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go really quickly now to so that's what the clerk's first portion of the budget is. DocuSign, it's the legal and signature authority to sign up all of our contracts instead of us getting hand cramps and doing the old school wet signature. So that's the clerk's portion there. The second portion is the council. So what do we pay for you guys as part of the council budget? So we have a council retreat facilitator that we have. It pays for Kitsap Regional Coordinating Council, Farmers Market Group. We paid 2024 was our first year. Came out of the retreat, so included in this next biennial budget. You guys pay 1,000, the mayor pays 500. Puget Sound Regional Council portion comes out of your budget, as well as Zoom. We were in a pandemic and we were required to meet virtually, and so that's the expense that you have to pay for us now being hybrid meetings. So $6,500 for virtual meetings, and then travel expenses. So that's for hotel, registration for $35 for whatever 101 class that we need to have, so that's what those are for. Also within that section is the lobbyist, so that's, we entered into a contract to have a lobbyist to help us with, some of our state funding. Let's see, most of the contracts went up anywhere from 3 to 7%. Your animal control contract was the highest because, they were on a 4-year contract and essentially only went up probably about 2 to 3%, so they lost quite a bit of, increase, from the CPIU, from the cost of living, so they did a presentation a few meetings ago and kind of touched on some of that, so as well as our population, so they were the biggest, increase, and again, I'll get to that in just a second. After the council, it's the mayor. So he's, represents the city as, on the Chamber of Commerce. He also represents the city as Port Orchard Bay Street Association. And then that's where the communication specialist comes out of that portion of the budget. And then as well as his portion of the farmer's market. So that is and then the last section is the record services, which is the clerks. And the bulk of that budget is the cost for our website, the agenda peak management system. We are required by state law to manage our records. So we archive all of our emails, our text messages, our website. So those are the software subscriptions to archive and manage those. Any on the nuts and bolts of the council, mayor and clerk?
No, just back up for a second. As far as freedom of information requests, have you seen those go up, down, and our recovery of cost? I know there was some change about how much we could recoup.
Yeah.
Are we seeing that offset, or we still lost leader?
So we essentially lost the amount that we can recoup from requesters because everything's gone digital now. So once you scan it and, it's already there, and the first person that basically requests these documents and we have to scan them, they pay it. And so any requester after that doesn't pay anything because it's already scanned. And the amount of documents that you have to upload to even get, so we did a cost analysis a few years ago. And so for every $500 pages that we can provide to somebody, it's less than $5. That we can charge them. That's the max that we can charge them. It costs more than $5 to staff to process those 500 records.
That was my next question. Can you detail the amount of time that goes in and the amount?
You cannot charge for searching.
No, I get that, but how much time does your staff actually spend on for that $5?
Yeah, she does a report for the state every year.
Yeah.
200 Gs.
Each request, probably an average of 15 minutes to an hour. Every single request. Average request, they're getting more complex. They want any and all. So average request probably takes 4 to 6 hours between all of the departments, because each department has to touch and do their piece of it. So we never get the amount that we put into it, because we can't charge for our time. You know, it's what we're paying them for our time, for our salary, but yeah, it's very minimal.
You have to report over 200,000.
And I'm just gonna do this back to the budget, because we're spending a lot of time talking about her
Yeah,
detail, anything specifically on the budget.
Yeah.
For Randy.
So and I'm gonna.
We're getting to 9 o'clock. and
So
we've
give me
got
30
more
seconds.
departments to go.
Okay, 30 seconds. The last half of the budget is where the contracts comes in, which is the housing, is it 1406?
Yeah.
So that's where that comes in. Our AWC membership dues to be part of risk management, that's part of that there. Our Kids Up Humane Society, we're required by state law to enter into a contract with our Puget Sound Air Pollution Control Agency, because we've been designated as pollution area. So that's what that's in there. AKITA, small business development with the Washington State University, the Governance Center Mortgage, Health District, and then our attorney fees. So, and of course, times and means.
Holiday on the Bay.
Holiday on the Bay. Yeah.
Brandy does yeoman's work with 2 people.
Yeah.
No, you're amazing.
You think? Yeah.
You're amazing.
Some days. Happy on a good day.
And she's been a one-man show here for a few weeks now.
Janine is visiting us online, so she's behind the scenes right now.
Hi,
So you can say hi to Janine.
All right, we're gonna move on to HR.
All right, good.
Well, HR is your next smallest department, also with two people, but we have a four-legged friend, so I guess we're a little bit, larger than the clerk's office. I will go very quickly. You have the bullet point list of the things that HR does. The one thing I realized just a few minutes ago that wasn't on here is I'm also the city's ADA coordinator for any, city facility or issue involving city property. We are kind of the committee department because we have the Civil Service Commission. They are an independent body. So when they want to hire outside legal counsel, they get to hire outside legal counsel. They are an independent governing body of the city, so there is money in the budget for that because they have requested some legal assistance this year. For the Wellness Committee, small budget, about $3,000. Safety Committee has no budget. Inclusion Commission, Mayor mentioned the survey. We have completed the survey this year. The commission will be presenting a report to you on what those results were. The survey company recommended we do it again in 12 months, 12 months and then 24 months. So 3 consecutive years to get a bigger, broader baseline. Make sure we weren't getting a one point in time, bad day kind of scenario. Talking with Rob in the budget situation, we agreed that 18 months is probably sufficient for us. So we'll do it one time this coming biennium, and then I'll be asking for the following biennium. And we'll have that almost 3-year picture. We'll just extend it a bit. On the financial page, I was going to tease Brandy on how less expensive our 2-person department is versus hers when I realized the totals on the next page are incorrect. So I'm sure Noah will fix that. They're Brandy's totals, not HR's totals. We don't cost you $3.7 million, although we'd be happy to. And I'm sorry, I didn't notice that looking at the earlier draft. No, I just noticed it as Brandy was talking.
Creative. Yes.
The AWC retro program is where AWC manages our laser industries claims. The fee for that program just happens to come out of HR. We of course advertise for jobs, and then we have an online application system, which I will defend until I'm blue in the face, that is working very well for us. And the mayor did put in the budget some training as a result of that Inclusion Commission survey. We need to start with some manager training and then follow it up in 26 with some employee training. We don't know what that looks like yet. The Inclusion Commission will be working on that. Just a quick reference to the 2 positions the mayor mentioned. No, the communications person isn't for HR. I just wanted it to be reflected on a document. That was what the council had talked about. And that safety manager, as the city continues to grow right now, Noah has to make sure all of his employees are first aid trained, as does Nick, as does Matt. There's just some economies of scale you could gain by having one person, and the Public Works Department pays a contractor to do some of that now. So, and that could be spread across the funds. But I get that the money isn't there right now. I just want to keep that on the horizon on the discussion table. So that's all I have for
Top of your head, how many people did you hire this last year?
Counting seasonals, I want to say 40.
Wow.
Yeah, full-time regulars, 25 to 30.
100.
Yeah, out of 30. I've only been here 5 years, and on a seniority chart, I'm about the middle.
Go ahead, John.
Ms. Lund, when we talk about that safety position, is that something that we could co-op with neighboring jurisdictions? And has that been explored?
We would have to have somebody in charge of safety to explore that. And I don't mean that flippantly, but there's literally nobody here who has the job responsibility of safety. So is that a possibility? Perhaps.
I'm saying that working with people who do it at the county, much cheaper when we're not paying for benefits, et cetera, et cetera.
A shared employee
Yeah,
concept.
yeah.
Right.
Just a thought.
And have we kept those 35 to 40 employees too?
Have we?
Well, 10 of them were seasonal. So
Right.
now
Oh, okay.
that's,
Gone.
now there's 30,
Yeah.
you know, and it's just, you know, some of them are police officers, there's just hiring and attrition.
We certainly have lost some of those, but we have.
The game, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Debbie. The next
Thank you.
department is court, and they are not present, so we would. Now, we'll talk about briefly, but
We
real
aren't
quick,
asking for anything.
court is pretty basic.
There is a status. And they're actually operating right now, one employee short. There's an easier.
So they're no longer asking for that conference room? They used to be asking for it to be annexed into their office. That was the last judge.
No, yeah. But I will point out that their budget starts on page 14 and goes 15 and 16, so take a look through there again.
Yeah.
Pretty basic.
Pretty minimal.
Okay.
Nick is on.
All right, so the Community Development Department, we are broken into several different divisions. The first I'll speak to is building, and that is, the building department is responsible for our building codes. They do plan review and inspection services. And just a few years ago, if you'll remember, we used to have a fire code service provided by South Kitsap Fire and Rescue. They realized that that was now a full-time job because of how much Port Orchard had grown, and came in and asking for money for the city to basically fund a full-time position. We decided, rather than sending them the $50,000 a year, to actually take fire code responsibilities in-house. That was part of growing the department. And so now our deputy director of the department is our building official. She is our fire code official. She supervises the other building staff as well as our code enforcement staff, and also manages our on-call building service consultants. The next division in the Community Development Department that I want to talk about is the Permit Center, and just a little history on that as well. It used to be that building and land use were handled by my department, and Public Works handled their own permits. The Public Works permit database and record keeping was a bit of a mess, and so we offered to take that on in my department. We created a centralized permit center. We wanted to standardize processes and basically have 3 clerks under a permit center manager that would handle the intake and the processing of permits and routing everything to the correct staff. And that has grown because our permit activity has grown significantly. We now also have an admin staff person that handles addressing for the city. So through the city's street name and addressing system, we have to get that information to emergency responders so that they go to the correct address in the event of an emergency. The permit center also handles our online permitting system. We have an online intake portal called Camino that basically makes sure that applications that are getting submitted to the city can come in digitally, and that they at least purport to include everything that is required of a complete application. And then we have our SmartGov permitting system, which handles the workflow and all of the steps that have to happen as you go through the process of reviewing a permit. And so every permit type that we have has to be built out within those systems, and so our permit center handles that work. There's public noticing requirements. Just about every type of permit that comes in requires a notice of application be posted, and so the big yellow signs that we see all over the city, that is how we communicate to the public that we've received an application that may concern you, and to find out more information, here's where you go. The permit center answers the phones and generally is the responsible for keeping things moving through the department and reminding the reviews when things are due if things fall behind schedule. Our planning department, we have 4 planners, and we are broken into the land use and zoning approval. We call it short range planning, and that is basically every permit that comes through the department has to get checked off by a planner to verify that it complies with our zoning. If it's new construction, it has to meet various design standards. There's critical areas review. So anytime you have wetlands, streams, steep slopes, there are special reports that have to be reviewed, and the planners are the ones who coordinate all that. They also hold pre-application meetings with prospective developers to talk about regulatory requirements and what can and can't happen on a particular site within the city. And then we also have long-range planning. They are responsible for comprehensive planning as well as our development regulations, and those are things that we are mandated to do through the Growth Management Act. And so we have to, you're well aware that we're developing our comprehensive plan update right now, and then the policy goals and policies of the comprehensive plan have to work their way into our local development regulations. And so when we adopt our comprehensive plan, hopefully by the end of this year, we will begin work on the development regulations early next year to actually implement the policies that are in our comprehensive plan.
We also do, regional planning. I personally attend meetings at PSRC and Kitsap, Regional Coordinating Council, monthly and develop regional policy, both at the county level and at the multi-county level. Next, we have code enforcement. We have 2 code enforcement officers, and they investigate essentially any code violation complaint that we receive. And I know that the council had asked for a report. We're still working on getting one to you of all of our open cases, but I think there's on average 100 to 150 open cases at any one time that are, that we send a courtesy letter saying, hey, this is a violation. We're not hitting you with a stick just yet. We would like you to voluntarily fix this, so that we don't have to escalate it to a formal action. And then there are things like dangerous building abatement, where we have to go to a judge at Kitsap County, get a warrant of abatement to demolish a house that is unsafe. And then there are varying levels of code enforcement in between. And so we have a senior officer who's very experienced, and we actually just hired our code enforcement 1 officer within the last 2 weeks. And so we're bringing that person up to speed. The code enforcement officer 1 does a lot of the courtesy letters. They also do temporary sign removal within our right of way in accordance with our revised temporary sign policies, and a variety of other things. Finally, parking enforcement, that was handed off to DCD within the last couple of years. We have 2 part-time parking enforcement officers that they're primarily responsible for downtown timed parking violations, as well as parking violations around the county courthouse. But as the city has grown, as we've added streets, we are seeing more and more parking violations. And so they are getting stretched in a lot of different directions. And anytime any department gets a call about parking enforcement, it seems like it automatically comes to parking enforcement, even though it's not always the right place for those calls. So it's kind of a clearinghouse for just general parking issues in the city, is what it ends up being. As far as our budget, we didn't ask for any major one-time expenditures this year. There's a small expenditure because we have a new mandate under Senate Bill 5290 concerning our permit timelines. And so we have to rejigger our permit software to now track and report on our performance as it relates to how long it takes us to take in and review permits. And we have to be able to generate an annual report. That requires our staff to make, to individually start and stop their own, the amount of time that they're spending on permits, so that the system can generate this report. And we actually have to do some IT work to build out these features in our permitting software. So that's a one-time expenditure that you'll see in the budget. The big item though, our building inspection and review consultant cost, I believe were around $300,000 or $400,000 for that one item. We did eliminate a position that we've been unable to fill to help fund that. But even if we had filled that position, we would still be relying on consultants. And the reason why is our building official is the only person qualified to review multifamily or commercial, anything that's complex commercial construction. And so because that person is also doing fire code review and is supervising so many other people, we're sending most of those reviews out to a consultant right now, because we just don't have the bandwidth to do them in-house at this time. So we do see building permits slowing down ever so slightly, but we expect it to still remain pretty steady. It's that a lot of the multifamily projects that were really time consuming have sort of come to fruition. There's still a few that are in the pipeline that could move forward, but we're seeing that interest rates and construction costs have really, it feels like we're at the tail end of the multifamily building cycle that we've been in, and we don't expect the volume that we've been seeing over recent years. However, we do have a community event center, a Kitsap Bank project, that are coming in that are on the more complex side. And if the county moves forward with the courthouse project, that is a major project that will require special inspectors and dedicated staff just for managing that type of project. And so it's possible that those things will mitigate any reduction in multifamily inspection work. Otherwise, our budget is mainly salaries and services. I think it's 77% salaries, and the rest is those services.
Yeah, I will point out again that his budget begins on page 28, following the book, to 32, in case you're looking at that.
So I'm looking at page 28, where the community center is represented 4 times. where the services for the community center is 151,000. I presume that's for design and consulting and all that, but
Yeah.
what about salaries, benefits, and supplies that look like they're placeholders at this point?
Well, at this point, we don't, record our staff time towards.
Is that what that? you're
Yeah, this
thinking
is,
about?
the services are all contracted services, so they're doing the heavy lifting, if you will.
Right. Are you thinking that in terms of, I'm just curious why you have salaries, for example?
It's
It's
just.
to help, I'm gonna guess it's to help offset what PFD can reimburse the city for, when it comes to community center expenses.
Yeah, I think as this project moves forward, we move towards a more construction phase, you might see actually some staff time. actually.
We can
Okay, there.
credit staff time as the match dollars
Mhm.
towards,
Okay. so
towards that for PFD.
Okay. Thank you.
And then I might just call out for Nick, his savings of like $340,000 on that position over the biennium that was eliminated is offset by an additional 415 consulting.
Not entirely offset, but.
No, but that, most of it, yeah. And you were calling out that you'd need some consulting anyhow, so.
Right.
That's really all you're doing is moving those dollars from one bucket into another.
Yeah, and I will say that, you know, looking at our actuals on how much we're spending on consultants, it is higher than what we're trying to do next year. It is possible that if the permit volumes stay high, we are going to have an increase in plan check fee revenue that will offset a subsequent budget request for additional consulting dollars. And so, we didn't want to overpromise what we could bring in permit revenue, and the permit revenue really needs to pay for that. So if there's higher volume, the ability to spend more on consultants if need be.
That'd be a mid-year review, recognizing additional revenue and then authorizing additional expense. Do we charge the county for parking enforcement around the county courthouse? No.
They're public.
So if they're cited, we get the revenue from tickets or?
And we don't patrol their lots, it's only on.
I got a question on the derelict, vessels. I can see that we did the buildings abandonment, but, how do we go about doing the vessels? I thought that was the.
It
police
is,
doing
but
that.
under the BART annual, it's supposed to come from our budget line item. And so they're doing the work, but the invoices come to me and I immediately send them to the chief for approval because I know nothing about our derelict vessels.
Right, I didn't see that budget. What was that budget? I'm sorry. What was?
It's on page
110 It's 110 a year, I think 105 a year. But
Minimum for.
Yeah, it's 55,000 for buildings and 50,000 for the derelict.
Page 30.
I couldn't read
30?
it.
Page 30.
Okay, thank you. I just didn't see that. Okay, thank you.
It's different.
Yeah, and last biennium, I think we spent 150,000 on derelict vessels, but that was all grant funded from DNR reimbursement.
Yes.
So that was the key to getting that done. So hopefully people-
And we have to
Again.
have the budget authority to spend the money and then seek reimbursement.
Right.
We gotta be able to do the work first and then seek reimbursement.
I'm just curious about the last vessel that was impounded. What were the final costs on that? Do you not know there?
You know.
And derelict vessels, down costs?
Thanks, Nick.
Last vessel.
Yeah.
Parking lot out there.
Well, that was actually Department of Natural Resources and, that was taken care of by them and that is being stored on property. Sailboats can really be dragged out and, sorry.
Come on up, chief.
Come on up.
If it is a power boat, that is a significant expense, up to about $5,000, you got to pull it off the bottom. Yeah. $210,000.
So I will be quick, fortunately, most people know what the police department does, so, we have two divisions, there's an administrative services division and an operations division. Operations division contains, just patrol right now. Patrol is responsible for responding to 911 calls, when we have available resources and we can. We also do traffic enforcement, and marine patrol under that umbrella. Administrative services, includes our general investigations unit. There's slated to be a sergeant and 2 officers in there by the end of the year, provided that the staffing continues going. We have 5 currently in field training. We have 1 in the academy and 2 backup. So while it may look like we have a whole lot of people, they're all doubled up in there. Administrative services, manages evidence, And they also do the vast majority of public records. I know that Brandy does a lot, our department does about 70 to 75% of public records requests. Because most people want their traffic collision, information, body cameras brought that up, which is why we went to an additional employee down there. And we also do some crime prevention work, that's a lot of that community outreach, which is why we're out in the public a lot more than we would have been in the past. With 32 employees, so 31.7 FTEs. The 0.7 is one of our administrative services professional staff. Our higher expense items for next year is continuing to increase some of our safety equipment, replace some aging radar equipment in our vehicles, increase our less lethal equipment. As we grow in staff, we have to have not only the resources that they can use for backups in case they are used, become evidence or they break. And then our major services that we pay for, it's at 911 jail services, as the mayor has already mentioned, going up to 20 and 30%. Our fleet, this year we worked, well, last year actually, we worked with finance and an outside company to modernize our fleet. And so there was a significant expense with that. What we found is HR was working with us. Getting to quality candidates that we're willing to hire has become much more expensive. Not only background investigation increased in cost, but we're finding that there are a lot more that we have to do before we find the right people. We've made a commitment to the city that we would rather be understaffed and have the right people than at full staffing and have the wrong people. And then we've continued to commit to adequate, more than adequate training, as we've discussed before. It requires 24 hours of training a year, but it's woefully inadequate. We average 120 hours. Under 5.
That was fantastic. I will point out there, the bottom totals are wrong, but if you look at page 17, those are the correct totals by fiscal year. And
We'll go back.
the columns on the salaries and supplies and services, those are correct, just that total line. And again, you see this kind of theme with each department, 80% of the cost is payroll, with the other 20% for services, being jail services, and kids that's county fixed services.
Chief, counting people in training, what is your FTE right now?
We're at 24, which is the highest in since I've been.
But that includes the 5 people that are in various stages.
Yep, there's actually a total of 6, so there's 5 that are present in uniform in cars now, but they're.
No, I'm talking about everybody we're paying for right now.
There's a total of 6 that we're paying for that are, so 1 in the academy, 5 in field training.
Right, and so that's a total of how many? 24, okay.
So 5 field trainings are riding ride-alongs?
Yeah.
How long is that process?
That is 14 weeks.
Thank you, Chief.
Yep.
Thanks, Chief. Again, his budget starts on page 17 and goes to 2025. You'll see on page 25, Fund 103 is the Criminal Justice Fund. So that's a special revenue fund dedicated funds only for police department. You'll see we use that fund in particular to pay for our police cars and the Axon camera system.
Good evening, everybody. So I am here to discuss Public Works. I'm going to give there's a lot. I think through this presentation is Public Works. I'm going to give a very high overview of what we do. Okay, I don't think everyone understands what I do yet, so I just say I work for the government and talk about it. So Public Works takes care of everything from city parks, engineering services, facilities, city streets, the water utility, the sewer utility, the storm drainage utility, capital projects, construction, operations and maintenance. So that's a lot. I'm going to start out with the first page here on the slide. So we group Public Works Department operating budget for engineering, facilities, parks, and library all together in the same sheet here overview. So currently we have about 30 projects in various stages of planning and design and construction. The engineering group oversees all phases in these. We do get support often from Nick's group in community development. Through August, we completed over just 2,000 inspections. So we're averaging about 12.5 inspections that are related to all development, any kind of project in the city, land disturbing activities. We have to inspect and oversee that process from start to end. We also inspect all new utility services. So all the new development, all the new subdivisions, The water connection, the sewer connection, those are things that the group has to go out and inspect. Opportunities to assist in our workload in this budget have been identified as one of the things we talked about is the project management software that's included in this current budget. That's going to provide opportunity for enhanced collaboration among the team members, better cost control, increased transparency, risk management, data-driven decision-making, and compliance management. So those are some of the things that we're doing. Moving on to our facilities. So this group also oversees all the maintenance and operations of the city facilities, including City Hall, the Community Development Department, the Operations Center, the library, and the 730 Prospect Building. Just over 40,000 square feet of space that we maintain. We're looking, we've implemented the asset management, so we're looking to develop maintenance management practices and workflow that will assist in operating the workflow for Public Works and getting ahead of some of our maintenance items. This building is brand new. It's a great time to put everything as a brand new, born on date. So going forward, that's going to be a good thing. Last part of this first one is our parks. We have 8 developed properties that we're maintaining, provides for additional seasonal workers. We've talked about some equipment that will improve efficiencies in the deployment of our staff. I'm gonna move on to city streets. Is there any questions on that so far? Am I going too fast?
And again, page 33 is where, Public Works starts, and city engineering department.
All right. So a quick overview on our city streets. So when we talk about our city streets, there's 2 ways to calculate how many roads miles we have. So we have about 75 centerline miles of road. So if you're going down a road, if you're just measuring the stripe line, 75 miles is what we have. That's close. You could say other agencies might say lane miles. We'd be at 150 lane miles. That's quite a bit. That's quite a bit. It's average for a city our size. With that, we have about 3,500 signs that we also maintain. So when you think of that roadway, we're maintaining everything from the sidewalks, everything on the surface of the road. Streets are the most expensive infrastructure that the city owns. I would estimate that we probably have $1 billion pavement out there. That's a public works term, more than your water, more than your sewer. Sometimes it's all of your other utilities combined, which you have in the asphalt of these roads. Increased budget for, this budget includes increased pavement markings. We're gonna increase our pavement reflectors. Thermoplastic budget is increasing. We're also gonna provide opportunities for our additional staff to get their commercial driver's license, additional licensed herbicide applicators so we can treat our roadside vegetation, also our median maintenance. That's a great assist. We talked earlier about the street signal update at Sydney and Tremont. And then we do have street light upgrades on Sydney and Woodbridge. Is there anything else on streets? Any questions?
No, but I want to point out that the Tremont landscaping looks absolutely fabulous. I don't know if people know, but it really looks
I
good.
think there's weeds that need to be told myself. It looks
We
good.
hit them about 2 weeks. Yeah.
There's horsetail in the first roundabout that needs to be addressed. Thank you, but it could be better.
Yeah, no, Jeff, our operations and utilities manager, he's been on the contractor and it's about 2 weeks, every 2 weeks, and we just try to get him out on site to walk with us. And
The pottery roundabout, on the east side of it, it's got horsetail taken over. It's a different ton of it. And you don't pull horsetail.
Come on, Dennis.
you gotta treat it.
Yeah.
So you walk the landscaping with the contractor?
Jeff has, I haven't, I did once, but not every time, but I can't. I can do a
Dennis
lot
and
of
I
nights.
did with it one time.
So it's as needed.
It's as needed, and usually he has a full crew out there, so he doesn't have to come in from W.
Okay.
So,
So that's not a scheduled maintenance, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, what have you.
it should be, but we have to light the fire.
It does, they're doing much better than they did.
Just a point of order, Mayor, we're allowed to go till 9:30,
Yeah,
and I was just wondering if we wanted to go ahead with an extension.
I think we can wrap this up in 10 minutes.
All right.
I'm
I
probably
will
not gonna get
I will
those.
say that won't allow a whole lot of time for discussion. You guys won't get discuss. It's just through the utility.
Wonder if we want to go with an extension that we need to do that?
We can address that in 7 minutes.
All right.
Keep going, Dan.
If I'm screaming too fast, just let me know. I am going to move on to our next item, which is water utility. Yes,
6.14 of those.
that is our allocation, so you are back at.
I'm gonna dismiss the thing.
Yeah, that's all.
Page 19. So your question was. Oh, yeah, so that's the cost package, that's the allocation, so that's my time, our administrative support time. So it's not just the people in the operations.
Thank
work,
you, guys.
It's
It's
not
not yours,
yeah.
It's all.
It's all public works, but it's, so we have 2 administrative workers, you have myself, you have our operations, manager. All of our time gets allocated through all the departments. We have a
So
procurement manager.
his salary is not just billed against the water fund, it's against the general fund, street fund, water, storm.
It's not field staff.
Yeah,
It's not admin.
There's 25 field staff.
we have an org chart we could share that actually has the positions.
Yeah.
If that's helpful, maybe in the next meeting, we'll take the names off, so.
We've
That
seen
helps.
it.
We did a.
Got it in my
You guys
email
approved- you
number.
guys
Yeah,
approved?
we approved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's, what- so
I've
you
got
will
it
see
in
those
my email.
decimals in those funds, and that's an allocation of admin stuff. That make sense?
Yes and no.
The counting.
I just wanna know how many bodies are in your department?
22.
You try again.
That's the number I wanted to know.
Yeah, we have, I asked the same question because I saw the presentation, so, yes, yeah. I was like, no, thank you for giving me more people, but it wasn't the case.
Okay, oh, Dennis, I'll go, because I know you're gonna go into the sewer and all this other
Yep.
stuff. So I asked months ago, and it doesn't sound like that I wanted to have beautify, you know, the downtown with hanging baskets, and I'm going very cheap. And I've talked to even, Craig at, what is it, Grocery Outlet, could get me some really cheap, hanging baskets. And if we do seasonal, and I'm going the bare minimum. So are you guys saying, or you for Public Works, this is not in the budget for the springtime?
He doesn't, it's the mayor's budget, it's not his budget.
Okay, but I'm just saying, this is our budget, so I'm asking.
We did the work and we came up with the estimate of the staff time,
Uh-huh,
and we provide those details. I mean, I provided you that information.
no, you provided it when I asked you a couple months ago, and it was $40,000, and I'm going, oh my gosh,
It's
no, it's
half
not.
of, it's half of an employee, because they would have half a day, 1 employee, and we're not adding to the capacity, so
No.
currently, with this budget, we would be going backwards in our parks. I would have to take somebody off of mowing grass in our parks for half a day, every day.
It's not, okay,
So point of order, I don't think this is appropriate for his budget presentation at this time, because that's. in the
they were
mayor's
supposed to
budget.
put this in here, I've asked about it, and it's not in here, and basically to water the.
You asked for it, and it wasn't included in this budget, and that is
Okay.
not Dennis's
It's not Dennis.
responsibility.
Is that your
Yes,
responsibility?
it is.
Okay, so I'm thinking 2 hours to water 20 baskets downtown, and I guess we don't get that.
It's not in this budget right now.
But we can have $100,000 EV cars. That's okay in the budget,
Yes, but that's a different fund, it's a different fund,
No, but-
it's funded, it's a restricted dollar amount.
but it's not very
different.
fiscal responsible.
Let's finish it, and then we can get back
Okay,
to the
I
council
get it,
discussion.
we'll come back to
Then you
that,
guys can-
but
then you can
still,
bring it back, yeah.
I'm very
Yeah.
disappointed. Okay, go ahead, sorry.
Time for different things.
I don't want to deviate, but I mean,
Yeah.
we do have to have vehicles and there's,
Keep going, if you want to get
associated
done by
costs. Okay.
9:30.
All right, so I'm gonna move on to water, water, just to give you the stats on water, so our city water system for, the supply, treatment, and the distribution of water, we have 10 active wells. We have 9 storage reservoirs, we have 3 booster stations, we have approximately 4,000 meters, Noah, 4,200 maybe? And then we have 480 fire hydrants in the city that we maintain, and then 78 miles of water line. These are new stats that we're getting from our asset management, which we went live with today, so I'm nerding out, so.
Yeah.
But one of the things that you'll see in the budget is that we also have a line item in there for maintenance of fire hydrants. We feel like we're getting behind, so we're being proactive in there. So some of the key points of the water system, we've got the Foster pilot project. We've talked about this. We've been working on it for several years. That's gonna provide water rights to the city out till 2067, I believe. We are working on getting a draft mitigation plan and a presentation over to the council. It's gonna be late 2024 or probably the first quarter of 2025 to get that information to council.
Presentation on Foster.
Yep. And then also training our operators for the treatment and distribution of potable water. Debbie talked about the amount of people that we're hiring. We've gone through the wave. First two folks have retired. The first one folks are long retired. We have a new generation of people that we have to train, and we have to have qualified operators to distribute this system. So that was my quick summary on water. Any questions on water?
The only comment I'm gonna add is that a big expense of our utilities is the debt service payments that we do. So we've made a big strong investment in the last 4 years to well 11, well 13, to get these infrastructure projects complete, and we borrowed money to do so. And those debt service payments are finally doing an impact in the fund. So when we talk about the water fund and my concerns with it, it's because the nearly $1 million of debt service payments we have now flowing out of the water fund. I think that's just something to keep in mind as we look at the enterprise funds.
To Jay's point, we have 2 minutes left. Are we going to extend 15 minutes? I think we should extend about 15 minutes at least to wrap this up.
Are we doing for the good of the order too, wrapping it up that way?
I'd go for 30 minutes, Mayor, just to make sure everything's heard.
I don't know that you got support for that.
Well, I'm just saying that we go 30. If we're less, then we're good. If not, then we're fine. That's up to the council. Keep on. Just be ready to go.
We got 2 minutes and then it ends.
Yep.
We don't have good of the order. I'd say just, we don't know half an hour, but just a couple minutes.
It's work study.
But there's good of the order.
So do we need a motion to?
We do
extend,
need,
or-
yeah.
There need to be a motion to extend.
10, yes.
I make a motion, we extend for an additional 10 minutes.
Second.
Second it. Oh,
There's a motion
Got it.
and a second to extend it for 10 minutes.
so we're done here.
Please, all in favor of extending 10 minutes?
They are.
Anybody opposed?
I'm opposed.
Oh, yeah, I thought you were the one that wanted it.
No, a lot more than 10 minutes.
Let's go.
All right.
Oh, gotcha.
Stormwater, we ready?
Yeah.
All right. So our stormwater status, we've got 103 miles of storm conveyance through our city. That includes our enclosed pipes in our roadways, roadside ditches, so when it's conveyance. That number and the sewer number, we do expect those to increase as we start TVing and getting caught up. We're gonna start discovering more infrastructure out there. We have 2,400 catch basins throughout the city, 14 publicly maintained stormwater ponds. I do want to note that we are budgeted for contracted services for cleaning catch basins. We have to do that every 2 years. We did it 100% in-house this year, and that's our plan going forward. So with that, that's going to assist with that new FDE that we're requesting. Mary talked about the near map purchase. Our requirement for the NPDES permit is that we are going to identify what our current tree canopy is. We are also required to identify overburdened communities and help them establish tree canopies as part of that permit. Near map's going to help us with mapping our watershed, historical data. It's also going to give us more accurate information so we can calculate our impervious surface area to assist with our new capital facilities charge for stormwater. So many benefits of that system. Talked about the new FDE. We also have a new sweeping requirement that is part of the stormwater permit. It's going to help our streets look more beautiful, but it is a stormwater requirement, so it falls under this line item. I talked about the PV of the underground infrastructure once we complete our sewer, which I'm going to talk about sewer if there's no other questions about stormwater. Sewer utility. So we do have 21 pump stations. That's quite a bit for a city of our size throughout the city. That's indicative of our terrain that we have. We have over 70 miles of sewer line. We do expect that number to increase as we start doing our TV inspections. We have the request in for the additional FTE. Our prioritization this year is reducing the infiltration and inflow, or the I&I that the mayor mentioned. We see significant inflows of water when it rains. We see some substantial increases in flow. This adds increased cost at the treatment plant, which trickles down to the ratepayers at higher rates. This is also providing overloaded system planning, what we're seeing, so it's difficult to plan for the future needs. You'll see in this budget, there's equipment for smoke testing. What that is, it's a manhole, equipment that fits on the manholes, and it's mineral oil, and it provides, smoke, you know, come up through illicit connections. Not gonna be surprised if we see catch basins that are tied into sewer still. We're in a city that has infrastructure that's, Civil War era, so. And then of course, there's funding included to make, the repairs as we find them, if it's slips lining or if it's, breaks.
How many lift stations did you say?
We have 21.
That's crazy.
So have you gotten the number, and I guess this probably may go to you, Noah. Did you see the numbers yet from West Sound about what they're looking at for our payments for ERU? Have you seen those numbers yet? To make sure that apples and oranges are, yeah, I
You said
forwarded
it
it.
to me and I can't remember.
Well, I just want to make sure, I haven't brought that in, but I want to make sure,
Yeah,
we're meeting on the 29th. And I want to make sure that it's copacetic and not, they're expecting us to be paying more than what we're estimating.
I would guess we have seen it and are on the same page with us. Yeah, I'll verify that.
Okay, would you please, before the
Yeah.
29th?
Yeah.
So, okay, thank you.
The smoke testing, the repairs, that's designed to bring our costs down.
I understand that, but they may have a different idea.
Yeah, because we got our budget for this work payments from them. So I'd be surprised if they changed their budget back and then.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because that's been a contention before on a number of ERUs that we've had.
Yeah.
So that's all. I just need a thumbs up.
Yeah. I'm thanks, guys.
Not too fast.
Thank you.
There, so. Yeah, a few minutes still. All right, so we've covered the entire budget. There is the budget for the debt service payments, the capital all included. Again, we'll come back to a capital presentation, so we'll more robust discussion on that, next week, if I can pull off the presentation material. Aside from that, Mayor, how would you like to go from here to allow us for some
Well, I
discussion?
guess, Dennis, go ahead, you can take mine.
Oh, I can say it.
You're welcome to hang around, but
Everybody's.
I just want, we're not gonna have a whole lot of time for deliberations this evening. Dennis, Noah's gonna come back next week and we'll talk about, the capital presentation that he has, and we'll put some time into, for budget discussion. So as you look at the thing, I mean, we wanted to fund everything that was brought before us, but there's only so many dollars. And we have to be mindful in municipal finance, the color of the money. Different buckets of money can't be spent. So 001 and 002 is the general fund. That's the street fund and our general fund. And the three biggest things, I touched on this at the beginning and I'm just reinforcing it again. The general fund, the three biggest expenditures of that are police, our streets, and our parks. And so if we're gonna, and I know where we want to do things, and it's in those three buckets. So if we're adding something, you've got to take something in one of those buckets. It's likely have to come out of the other two buckets. So I welcome suggestions on how, what we can do, but you gotta what is it you're advocating that we not do? Because we have statutorily pass a balanced budget, and I presented you guys with a balanced budget.
I just have one question. So out of the retreat, out of the top five, we just type our top five priorities. How many of those made it to the list?
You had the communications person, which was in the budget. There were things that we've done already, and I don't have them off the top of my head. One of them was some additional summer hires, and whether we want to revisit that or not. And we did it, we actually, cycled through some bodies last summer. We had, for the 6 positions, we had 10 people pass through them. I can't recall what the other items off the top of my head, what they were.
Maybe come back with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
A lot of work by those guys.
And we didn't get to the property tax, because that was something that was on our agenda, so that didn't even get on.
Yeah, we did.
Did that
property
at the
tax.
top. We did at the beginning. we did.
That was the beginning, that was the first.
But we didn't vote on that.
We don't vote at a.
There's another presentation and a public
Yeah,
hearing
okay,
next week,
yeah, that's what I thought.
and then you'll vote on.
Yes.
the-
And that's where you can introduce amendments for things you'd like to see that are.
So we're gonna, our budget, our meeting is going to have this revenue sources first, some action items. And then we will have a presentation by Noah on the capital side of it, and then we'll carve out some time for you guys to get to it. As you'd like to see it, so I don't know that it'll be that formal at this point, as far as.
Not at this point.
Yeah, so you know, we really, Friday's meeting was about the directors, and I thought it was more important that all of you guys hear that. Noah and I are kind of, I think the deliberations here going forward, unless the finance committee feels differently, that they have work that they want to do and bring back recommendations to the full council, or do we want to bring it, work on this as a committee of the whole at the next council meeting? It's your call.
In other words, are we meeting on Friday or not?
Well, Friday, I don't think there's any reason for anybody but the finance committee to gather on Friday, because the other directors aren't gonna be there. That's why we gave these presentations here tonight.
Oh, it's just me, the finance committee.
We would be
Okay.
just the finance.
No
committee.
directors, okay.
Yeah, correct. So it's your call, whether there's value in you guys gathering and trying to work with Noah and I to come to some recommendations, if you're that far along in this, or do you want to hear from everybody before we try? So it's your guys's.
I would say the committee does not need to meet because I think the council as a whole is ready to.
I would agree. I would also say, I think the general consensus coming out of our meeting today was there weren't a ton of changes to be done. I think I even come to, like, there's a couple of things I'd like to add to mid-year review, but I mean, there's just not enough money to go around to do the things we want.
Unfortunately, there's not. I've got some concerns about a couple of things, but there's no money to really.
And there's no harm in adding 6, 10, 12 more things to the mid-year review. I think.
Because we'll prioritize them at that time. right?
What I would recommend is whether it's our retreat or the special meeting that we're about to have, once we get the budget done and we have that list, I'm gonna look to you guys let's do a prioritization. So it makes Noah and I's job way easier, because if we've got 20 things on a mid-year review list, how do we know what your top priority is? So I think I would welcome that, and having a work session with you guys after we finish the budget, we have what that mid-year review list is, and then to prioritize that list so that we know as we have dollars, you know, okay, we got $500,000 and the first 3 things on the list is that, and we know we can fund those things and bring it forward.
Point of order, Mayor, the time's up, and if you'd like to extend.
We've got 1 more minute, actually.
Got New Street, changing to 9:40 in about 10 seconds.
So I would just say one thing. I don't want to change the direction of the council's direction. Mine says 9:30, 9:39. Council's direction, but I am really concerned that we've reduced the budget for our streets and maintenance over what we've had the last 2 years. Really concerned about that. We pretty much slashed the request by Public Works Director in half. That concerns me. Still got aging roads. That's one that I'm really gonna try to dig around on this and see what, if anything, we can go to, but that's a concern.
I'll second that, and it's to maintain that B rating, B plus rating we got on the roads from the consultant many years ago, if we maintain this level of service.
And you know, I'd be dead horse on.
I just want to make sure we answer his question.
What my question was?
You need to meet on.
Do we
Friday.
need to meet Friday and or
And
meet as a whole?
I think we're gonna just bring it back and carve out time next Tuesday.
At the council meeting.
At the council meeting, and not
Budget
on
discussion.
Friday.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
9:40.
All right, well, our meeting is good.
okay.
I just got one other thing for you. I forgot to tell you. When we walked in,